Indianapolis.
75 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
Come on, let's wake up.
Gotta wake up.
Are you sure you want to wake up to this?
Come on now, wake up.
I can't wait to wake up.
Wake up, idiot.
This topic, but I know there are a lot of people out there, maybe even one in the studio, that would be on the flip side of that. Here in Indy, we have been graced with tons of awesome sporting events. Obviously, one just wrapped up here in the 9-day U.S. swim trials. I believe that number just a shade under 300,000 attending Lucas Oil Stadium in late June. I would say that's a pretty good number. The announcement yesterday of, do we call it WWE a sport, by the way?
Yeah, sports entertainment, Cove.
WWE, call it whatever you would like. People are telling me this is an absolutely massive deal.
Yep.
Mark Dykton, how big is this?
Humongous. I mean, you are going to get at least five nights in Lucas Oil Stadium of packed, complete, like probably highest attendance ever. It's going to set attendance records in Lucas Oil Stadium with how many people are going to be in there for those events, whether it's Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, WrestleMania. They will set attendance records in Lucas Oil Stadium. You're going to have people from all 50 states, all across the world. You're going to have week-long events. It's going to be a massive economic boom for the city, and they showed out yesterday, too. They made the big announcement and everything like that in front of the crowd. And
it was AAA in town. How about that?
Triple H, yeah. Triple H running the show and everything like that. So they are...
What does Triple H stand for? KB, do you have any idea?
He's got no clue. There's no way he knows.
I did.
His eyes lit up.
Zero clue whatsoever.
You're not a wrestling guy at all?
Not a wrestling.
Did you didn't go through it at all?
Did you realize the magnitude of this?
Yes, of course I did. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
it broke on, what was it? On Friday it broke. What was the name of the website it broke on, Mark?
Oh, it was WrestleVotes, which is I told Andy, I said, for those who don't know, it's a wrestling Twitter account. They don't tweet often, but when they do, they've got some pretty serious news, and they are batting 1,000. And sure enough, there it was.
Yeah,
now,
I know a bunch of people who are all in on this. Yeah.
Now this is different in that they're packaging all three of the big three: Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, what's the third one that I'm missing? SummerSlam. They're combining all three of them in one city. Now we don't know the exact dates. Royal Rumble is going to be February 1st, coming up, next calendar year, 2025. The other two remain to be seen exactly
TBD.
What year that will be, but it will be here in Indianapolis. So that is the uniqueness, I guess, of this announcement. Again, my hand fully raised. And I've said this quite often, especially when it comes to the Indy 500 of I'm all about just getting people in the seats. I don't care who they are. You get them into your environment, and then from there, it's your job as marketing department, a entertainment business to try and keep that fan there. Final Fours, Big Tens, Indy 500, that's our thing. But, in the last decade plus, I guess, to go Super Bowl, NBA All-Star Game, Olympic swim trials in a football stadium, now this. I know we're biased, but damn, Indy's unbelievable at this.
I know.
Shout out to the sports score. Shout out to everybody.
It just keeps happening.
What? Well, I guess, do you think McAfee is that big of a draw? I'm generally curious, why Indy for this? When, it's not like we have, yes, we've had WWE here before, but it's not like the rich history of it. I don't know. As someone that's not a huge fan of it, I still consider and be like, this is pretty cool.
Well, I think the fact that he's now part of the company, but he's such a fan himself that he's kind of convinced them that, hey, you guys are kind of missing Indy a lot. You guys go to Chicago all the time. You go here and there. Indy can do it. We've done Super Bowls. We've done this and that. So he's gotten in the higher-ups ears and obviously pulled something off. So shout out to him for getting it done. And, yeah, it looks like there's going to be more than just those three events coming forward, too, because there's going to be smaller shows and everything like that. So it's just the beginning, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, I would say McAfee has a hand in it. I would say the thing that I kind of think is when there has always been, and we have asked these questions to different people we've had on whether it be from the Indiana Sports Corps or anything else. Hell, we asked Bob Kravitz yesterday, KB, what's an event you would like to see that hasn't been in Indy? Well, everything has basically been in Indy. I mean, you just went through the litany of Super Bowl and, of course, the Combine and the U.S. swimming and all the basketball and everything else. You just go through it, the College Football Championship, all the Big Ten stuff, and you just keep going through the Rolodex. And, me and Mark were talking about this on Friday. Really, WWE, WWF, whichever iteration, if you will, of it, has... I mean, you tell me. It's been years since they have done a big one here. So, it's great.
2000, the last time they did a SummerSlam was 2008. They haven't done a WrestleMania since 1992. That was in the Hoosier Dome, and they've never done a Royal Rumble, and they've never done any of that in Lucas Oil Stadium.
Well, and I guess that's the thing that I'm trying to get to, and I'm probably not explaining it well. It's not just one-off.
Right.
You're talking the big three all coming here, starting in February 2025 . So that announcement.
What to get you in the ring
yesterday?
We need to get you to a show, Kevin.
I have to get you hit over the head with a guitar or something.
Show date. Let's
we
go.
getting Triple H in studio?
I'd like to.
I'd
Don't
love
tempt
to.
me.
Oh, goodness. I'd love to.
Good Tuesday morning to everybody out there. I'm Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton, Andy Sweeney with us as well. Lilly King, the one and only. She's going to join us coming up at 8:30. Again, we closed the book on the swim trials. That announcement came yesterday. Over 285,000 fans spread across those 9 days and nights over at Lucas Oil Stadium. Always enjoy our conversations with the ever candid and honest Lilly King. They are, I think, currently en route to Colorado Springs to begin their month-long training together. I did see yesterday they had a practice together inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, and a really cool moment. Team USA had all of the members walk into the Colts locker room inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, and plastered up on the lockers were the Team USA lockers. All their gear, their nameplates, obviously the Team USA logo, all of that. So pretty cool experience for them. So Lilly King going to join us coming up at 8:30. Where were you guys bouncing around on the remote last night? Because I must admit, as much as I thought I'd be locked in Game 7 NHL, I was actually going a couple other places.
Oh, where were the couple other places? Were you going to wrestling? I mean, what are you doing?
There was no wrestling. No, I did go.
You got Reds, didn't you?
I did dabble a little College World Series. Ellie De La Cruz had a night to remember.
He had a huge home run.
I dabbled there. And then shout out to Indy's own Cole Hawker, an unbelievable race in the Olympic track and field trials. Now I feel like I'm on to that. Did you guys watch any of it, or were you all Stanley Cup?
I've watched a little bit, but not nearly as much of the swimming.
So this fascinates me, okay?
Okay.
Hear me out. Team USA for basketball, right? Caitlin Clark, it's a selection process.
Right.
Team USA for the men, Tyrese Halliburton, it's a selection process. For swimming and track and field, there's no selection process. Like, you have to win or do well in your trial to make it. And last night here, I'm watching the 800-meter women final, and the defending Olympic champion falls down, gets tripped during the race, and she's done.
And it's done. It's over.
And
yeah.
I'm like,
I
can
saw
you
that.
imagine that heartbreak of, like, this is not just a, hey, Michael Phelps, because you slipped off the starting gate there or out of the starting block, you're good to go because you got name recognition. That just, like, I think I love it, but man, is it heartbreak.
Okay, so the last week or so, so if you take the Olympic swimming trials, you take the College World Series, you take what you were watching last night in track and field, you take Game 7 last night of the NHL Finals, okay? Are you gravitated towards the winning or the heartbreak? Because it sounds like you're gravitating towards the negative side, the heartbreak side of it.
I think I'm gravitating towards just the entertainment value and frankly, the unwritten script. Like, again, we could probably pick our, men's basketball team for the Olympics. Like, there's not a whole lot of intrigue
on none.
that. I guess we had, whatever debate about Caitlin Clark and not, but like, I mean, can you imagine them, like, I don't know how they do it necessarily in, like, the men's basketball, but them, like, filming the trials and filming the 5-on-5
What if they had a
games
game?
and, like,
what if they had a game and Kevin Durant went 2 of 15 and he
sure,
didn't make the team?
Yeah, we have knockout for the final spot. I don't really know how you would do it, but I would say, and I felt this way going to the swim trials on Sunday, like, you're walking around downtown and I'm like, man, you see some of these parents and it's like, wow, your kid could be a 10th or 100th away from making the Olympics or not.
The families are all loading into Buca di Beppo, and they don't know if their loved one's going to Paris or not in a couple weeks.
Like, Caitlin Clark is going to be, okay, so she doesn't make the Olympics. It's a bummer.
Right.
She also has played in the national title game. She's playing for the Indiana Fever. Like, her sport is not on a 4-year cycle. Largely track and field and swimming.
Oh, it's a 4-year cycle, yeah.
On the 4-year cycle. So, it was a super entertaining first period last night in Miami. I do always enjoy just the natural drama of watching playoff hockey. It was a reminder of, I think, Sean McDonough needs to be on other sports for ESPN and not just hockey. But I must say, I was flipping back and forth between a couple different things.
Yeah, I was mostly between the baseball and then, back and forth. A little Game of Thrones last night, House of the Dragon. You into any of that stuff? Again, I'm labeling you as not being into any of that stuff.
Can't say. I thought you'd be a little bit more locked into Game 7 or even the College World Series.
I mean, I was the College World Series. I don't know. College baseball moves way too slow for your boy here. College baseball, to me, is possibly one of the worst products that we have in sports. I've had to do a lot with college baseball. The games there's no clock on anything that they do. But, I was back and forth. I was Game 7 last night. Game 7 started out so strong. You had 2 goals in about, what was it, 10, 12 minutes or so. And you thought, okay, this is the game that it might be, and end up not being that way. And I guess there's just something that I love. That the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup, and that area cares so very little, and Canada cares so very much, and
I'll be
love
honest, and Brendan King's probably pissed off about this. I thought the crowd stunk for a Game 7.
It's just okay.
It's
Sunrise,
Game
Florida.
7 of the Stanley Cup Final. It's not a Tuesday night matinee or whatever. That to me, every time I flip back and forth, I'm like, where's the hockey craze? Again, I don't think of the Florida, and I know the Florida Panthers have been a very quality team, but I just don't, it doesn't strike me as hockey.
Well, that's the best part of it, is that
I thought it was louder when the Oilers scored.
Our hot state, okay, Florida is hoisting the cup, and there's nothing more than these Canadians want than to hoist the cup, Kevin Bowen. And they're not doing it. And in front of them, it's not a Detroit. It's not a Colorado. It's not a Buffalo. It's not a cold iron and steel working American place. It's Sunrise, Florida, with all the New York trains. It's in South Beach.
The Villages.
It's fantastic. The Villages, Kevin Bowen. And that's what has the trophy. It's fantastic. Tampa Bay's won a couple times as well. Vegas won. Oh, the Canadians got to be upset. They've got to be so upset.
That's a long flight back home.
Are we good with Connor McDavid winning the
I don't know. I know
trophy?
that's the national story. It's like winning the MVP on a losing team. That's exactly what it is. I don't know. I don't really have a hot take on it. I don't really care if Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe or not. I got to be honest. Maybe that's a pop quiz question today from Scotty, but I just don't care. It hasn't happened in over 3 decades.
I will say there are moments, and especially that second goal by the Panthers, where just the drama of the Oilers being on the doorstep, and next thing you know, you flip it, and there's Florida going up 2-1. And in the third quarter at times, Bob Kravitz said to us yesterday, he thought the goalie, I believe he called him Bob, Sergey. He said he would come through. There were times where Sergey was literally laying on the ground, and I'm thinking, here comes.
Well, he should have won the Conn Smythe.
That game-tying score.
That would have been the conversation.
The Oilers could not tie it up there. So
Look
the
at us, a
Florida
little hockey.
Panthers are your Stanley Cup champs. It's the Tennessee Volunteers. Shout out to Evansville, one of the very few teams that were able to knock off Tennessee throughout this tournament run. It is Tennessee winning there in Omaha for that one. And now we are a day plus away from the NBA draft. We will get to some Chris Ballard, actually, audio here coming up in a second. He did have an update on Anthony Richardson. I thought the quote was rather interesting, if I'm going to be totally honest. So we'll play that here and share some thoughts off of that. But my hand was raised at the start of the show to say my knowledge with the WWE is very little. Although I talked to my brother-in-law about this. He's with Mark Dykton. He's like, oh, man, you've got to go. He's like, the in-stadium entertainment for these things is incredible. So, again, fully acknowledge.
Show date. Let's do it.
It might not be my cup of tea, but it's a lot of people's cup of tea. So, big news there for Indy. But I'll be honest about another thing, guys.
Okay. Boy, it's an honesty. I like you opening up on a
Laying
Tuesday.
on the couch this morning.
Yeah, I like that. Do you want to lay down? That's fine. We can lay you down, get a little pillow.
I can't name, nor do I know anything about the projected number 1 pick in tomorrow's NBA draft.
It's the most random thing,
Can
is
you
it
name
not?
You're in the majority, I think, of that.
Well, I mean, it depends on who goes number 1.
I don't know if it does, quite honestly.
Well, you
This
know
is a
what?
who's who of
It's a
who's
great
who.
point.
I
Well,
guess the guy
I know
that's
who
currently
Alex Sarr is.
Yeah, Alex Sarr is not the name that I'm thinking of.
Zachariah Resaicher? Is that how you say it?
Boy,
I don't feel like that's.
Yeah,
You just got to say it fast.
Great effort on that last name. I don't think that's 100% right, but again, I have no idea.
I wanted to ask you this. If Jarris Walker or Benedict Mathurin were in this draft, where do you think they would go? And I ask that understanding that they're still, you're going to get to Reed Shepard and Stephen Castle and Dalton Connect and Klingon and Rob Dillingham and Cody Williams. Like, you're going to get a bunch of college players, but, the influence is going to be heavily, the foreign influence. And then on top of it, there's still that G League influence that is there that while they played here in the States, we haven't seen them play like if they would have, went to, Duke or Kentucky or Indiana or something like that, or Purdue for that matter. And that's why probably Zach Edey is so interesting. But I would say that it's probably going to feel like the most random draft, and especially at the very top with the top 2 or 3 guys going, guys that we've never seen play basketball before. Never. I mean, think about that. Probably 40% of the top 10 will be guys that you have not seen play basketball, perhaps even more.
And I think back to LeBron's draft, in 2003, he sandwiched around number 1 picks of Yao Ming and Dwight Howard. You know, even at the time, those two, certainly Yao, beyond household names, and Dwight Howard was extremely heralded, coming out of high school. After Victor Webb and Yama, we're not getting that in this year's class. And that's why in all seriousness, and, we had Steve Lutz on to talk a little bit more about Zach Edey yesterday. I do think Edey becomes arguably the storyline of round 1. It's funny when you hear any sort of kind of national people talk about the draft. Certainly they offer some thoughts on what will happen at the top. But one of the very next questions is Edey related. I found it interesting yesterday. Jonathan Cavoni of ESPN, and we can get more into this as the show moves along. He said he had heard Edey's name as high as number 9.
Wow. Okay.
To Memphis.
That'd be Memphis, yeah.
Now, if you look at, a lot of these mock drafts, it is very ironic how close Edey and Khalil Ware from IU, of course, are in these mocks. So I know locally, obviously, it's a huge story in our backyard, but still, I think nationally, and just in general, it sounds like there'll be a good amount of centers going tomorrow night, which is certainly not something that we have talked much about here in recent NBA draft history.
Yeah, and then on top of it, listen, I know Kyle Filipowski will be a first rounder. Kentucky will have, it's custom anymore that Kentucky's going to have a couple kids very
Connect
high
from Tennessee.
Yeah,
high.
Dalton Connect, but to me, there's not a run of big. Boy, I tell you, UConn has hit in the last 2 years. UConn has changed that because I was going to say, there's not a run of big time college program guys going. Look at Duke only has one that go in the first round. And quite frankly, I don't think too much about Kyle Filipowski at the next level. I don't. Kentucky has 2 guys, but they're not the dominant. It's funny that Reed Shepard could go as high as number 3, and I'm calling him not the dominant because, what you've seen from them. You've seen the John Wall type of guys or the Julius Randles or the Anthony Davises, something like that. And Reed Shepard's probably going to end up going top 5. He didn't start last year for Kentucky. So it's probably the oddest draft that I can remember. You're going to have a lot of Marquette, Virginia, USC, Illinois, Colorado. It's going, it almost mimics, KB, a little bit of what we have seen with recruiting. Recruiting used to be so narrow on just, 5 or 6 schools, whatever that number would get a lot of the 5-star-ish type kids. And now that's really spread around. They go all over the place. They can go anywhere from Indiana to Kentucky to, Colorado and Illinois, USC. USC had 3 5-stars going into this year, including a guy like Bronny James. So I think it shows how spread out college basketball is. Like I said, you're gonna get 3 guys probably at least that are American kids that went to the G League that you have not seen play. I mean, Ron Holland is going to go in the lottery, who I actually like a lot, but Ron Holland was a guy that couldn't cut it at the college level, went to the G League, and here he is, right? I mean, we haven't seen him play basketball.
Picks 36, 49, 50 for the Indiana Pacers. Again, we'll continue to preview tomorrow night's NBA draft, taking a closer look at where Zach Edey, Khalil Ware could go on that. And on the Colts front, a Chris Ballard update for Anthony Richardson. And as we are now less than a month away from training camp commencing at Grand Park, we'll begin kind of a daily Colts series we'll do here. Colts question of the day as we lead up to the start of training camp. Again, July 24th is a report day. We'll get the official camp schedule late tomorrow night, but we'll certainly focus on that here coming up here in a bit.
Yeah, a reminder, coming up at 8:30, Lilly King is going to join us. Cannot wait for that conversation. On the other end, your morning check down, the sounds from Game 7 last night in the NHL. As KB mentioned, we'll get you that Chris Ballard update on Anthony Richardson and all your scores. We'll do it next. Morning check down, hanging out with you on this Tuesday until 10 o'clock. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The legend that is Lilly King. She's going to join us coming up here in an hour after she had a very impressive Olympic swim trials, I would say in and out of the pool. We'll chat with her coming up at 8:30. It was a busy June Monday night in sports. Go ahead and lead off a morning check down, Andy.
Yeah, let's start Game 7 NHL Finals last night. You saw that in Florida. The Florida Panthers coming away with a 2-1 victory. Now, after the national championship game or the Super Bowl or anything else, we like to play a bunch of sound clips from the teams that were involved and ESPN's call. So let's do that. Let's go with ESPN's call, and I'm blanking on who's on it. Help me. You just
Sean McDonough.
Yeah, Sean McDonough, who's fantastic and who I thought was really good on these finals. So here's the TV call from ESPN. The final seconds, the puck goes into the corner, and there's basically a scrum for a good, what would you say, 6-7 seconds, and that's how the game ends with the scrum in the corner, and Florida takes it 2-1. Here's how it sounded on ESPN.
Florida trying to end it up against the wall, which would be fitting. 3 seconds to go. The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup.
All right, so that's a good clean call, right? Have you heard, and Mark, I don't know if you listened, did you listen to the home call, the Florida call?
I haven't heard the home call yet. I've heard the Edmonton
because
call.
the analyst is all over the play-by-play guy, KB. I think you're going to love it. WQAM. Go ahead, Mark.
10 seconds left. 2-1 Panthers. A dream 30 years in the making is a reality. The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup. Lord Stanley is coming home. You always will have a place in South Florida. Oh, my God. The Panthers have won the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history. Yeah!
It honestly sounds
Start the celebration, South Florida. The Panthers have done it.
It honestly sounds like a drunk fan has got a hold of the mic. That was outstanding.
It rides a line of being awesome and terrible all at the same time.
I feel like, yeah.
I think I love it.
I think I do too.
I think
I'm
the
with you.
play-by-play guy would like to beat up the analyst afterwards, but yeah. You walked all over me, man.
That was more emotion than anybody in the building had last night. That was a Florida Panthers.
Sounded like
stop it.
Sounded like at one point he was screaming into a pillow or something.
Has anyone talked to Brendan King? Is he good to go?
He was very excited.
Was he very excited? Well,
Yes,
good for
he
him. I
was.
have to shoot him a text. Good for
Last
him.
night, yeah.
I saw him. He put some photos of him and his family watching the games and everything else. So good for him. So that's how it sounded on the winning side. Now, I have not heard this. Mark found it this morning. This is the Edmonton call, right?
Yes, and it's not as depressing as you would think it would be.
I was hoping it would be depressing. Go ahead.
And here come the Oilers. Steele Rodriguez turns, fires wide. 20 seconds to go in the season. Game 7, Stanley Cup final. The Oilers come up ice. One last chance. Bouchard up the right-hand side. Through Draisaitl. Panthers will try to pin it in the corner. 10 seconds to go. 7 seconds. Florida 2. Edmonton 1. Oilers pulling. 2 seconds. 1 second. The season is over. The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup 2-1 in Game 7.
I'll be honest.
I think that's awesome.
I'm glad Edmonton didn't score there late. Homeboy wouldn't have made it through overtime
was
with the Christy Sides voice
Oh
coming
my
there.
goodness. I actually thought that's a great call for the losing call. The emotion, one last push, the season's all over. Meanwhile, his voice sounds like a combination of Christy Sides and Tom Allen.
Waking up Sunday after a bachelor party on South Beach there. God, that was hard to listen to with that voice.
Those
Oh, my
Canadians know how to
goodness.
call their hockey, though. That was a good call, I'd say.
You could
The
tell
voice
he was
was
into
going,
it.
but
Yeah.
that was a good call.
He was doing everything he could, KB.
2-1.
He was mustering.
The Panthers, the MVP trophy goes to the losing Connor McDavid. I don't know if that's drama-filled. I'm sure Stephen A. Smith will have a thought on that here coming up here on this Tuesday morning. All right, yesterday in Major League Baseball, I would say quite the entertaining night over there on the Diamond. Ellie De La Cruz hits one off a boat in Cincinnati, a triple short of the cycle. Did you guys see the Vlad Guerrero Jr. homer?
I did not, but the De La Cruz homer is probably Is that the furthest you've seen one go in Cincinnati? I'm trying to think
like
if
Adam Dunn hit one halfway out across the Ohio River.
I was thinking, has Stanton hit one when he was with Miami? Was coming to mind, and then Adam Dunn. Those were the two. Maybe Josh Hamilton.
Yeah,
perhaps those three guys came to mind.
Center obviously is pretty damn impressive, and
I feel like the height he got still had on it.
Yeah, the moonshot from De La Cruz. Why I'm rocking. He's so incredibly entertaining. Vlad Guerrero Jr. hit one 471 feet. This was out of Fenway, over the Green Monster. Out of Fenway.
I have to look it up during the break.
Some Boston guy just going to a bar. What the hell was that?
Like, to me, like, the numbers of 471, I think De La Cruz, like, 432, like, those resonate to a degree, but I think when you're used to watching these ballparks and then, like, having the idea of, wait a minute, he hit it out of Fenway? Or, like, in De La Cruz's case, he hit the boat in center at Great American? I think that almost resonates more than any number on that end. So, I can't think of a better night of baseball for that entertainment, and the cherry on top was the Cubs losing on a walk-off walk.
Yeah, because I went to bed and they were up 4-2, and I woke up this morning not knowing if they won. I was like, I bet they blew that game. Sure enough, they did. In 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth, I'm like, God, they suck. They are terrible.
When do they? When are they honoring Sandberg? Or
They already did. That was
weekend?
on Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, they did the statue and everything.
Walk-off walk.
Every Cubs fan came. I remember coming home from school and WGN and Ryan Sandberg would be on the TV. Sorry, Mark.
No, that's okay.
Everyone about your age.
I mean, at this point, I can only take it because they stink. They
stink.
They need mass. They're boring. They're bad. Those are 2 bad combinations for a baseball team.
Not
Shout
good.
out to Indy's own Cole Hawker last night in the U.S. Olympic track and field trials. Really an unbelievable race. Big kick late in the race. Lee Diffie, our IndyCar guy, he's on the call for the Olympic trials. He's doing a great job there. Set an Olympic trials record, Cole Hawker, as he wins the 1,500 meter. So he will now be back in the Olympics for a second straight time. Boy, he just reached, frankly, another gear there late in that race. So pretty exciting now as we transition from swim trials over to the track and field trials. And again, Cole Hawker, the casino product, making the Olympics again.
Yeah, the only other thing I had, you mentioned baseball, College World Series 6-5, Tennessee wins that one, their first ever national title. They beat Texas A&M, so a lot of fun there in Omaha. And the Indianapolis Indians off yesterday. They're in Rochester tonight. Long road trip. They begin that tonight at 6:45. You got anything else?
Well, I'll just say add to what we let off the show with, because I do think it's worth just making sure people like me have a full understanding of what that announcement yesterday meant. That was WWE announcing that they will not only be coming to Indianapolis for un event, but their big 3, the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam. The first of this will start February 1st, 2025. That will be Royal Rumble, and then those other events to follow in future years. Again, we are talking a handful of sold-out Lucas Oil Stadium nights moving forward here with these 3 events. So a big, big deal for our city and just another notch on the belt of events that not only Lucas Oil, but the sports core continues to attract to our city. So big shout-out to them. Unbelievable work that they do. And pretty unique event coming here to Indy.
Mark, I don't know if you've seen this or not. Did you see the Tyrese Halliburton shirt that is out?
Of course. Yeah, he was on TV yesterday.
Tyrese 317.
He was front and center on Monday Night
Blue
Raw.
and gold tint to it, correct?
He got some TV time, and then they showed that he was
I saw
FaceTiming Logan Paul during the show as well.
Oh, was he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like that. So, yeah, it's not my thing as much. I went through the wrestling phase when I was a young kid. And then
Get back on the horse,
and
Andy.
then middle school-ish. Maybe 9th grade, but you get to high school and things change, obviously, as you guys know. But I mean, D-Generation X came out when I was in middle school, so you can imagine.
Yep.
we're talking
backpacks were being power bombed at lunch, is what I'm trying to tell you.
We're
KB.
talking huge numbers here.
Oh no, it's a big deal.
Last year I saw WrestleMania was north of 140,000. Royal Rumble, I believe, was in St. Pete, so obviously a different venue than what you're gonna have at Lucas Oil.
And that's a one-night event.
That was just under 50,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So again, just Final Fours, Big Tens, obviously the Indy 500, we're like used to that. But then it's like, wait a minute, how about a Super Bowl? How about that NBA All-Star Saturday night in Lucas Oil Stadium? How about putting a swimming pool inside of Lucas Oil Stadium? 9 nights of nearly 300,000, and now this, which again, they have come to football stadiums before. That's not the unique nature to it, but still, to get all 3 events spread across the next couple of years, Sports Core, just major hat tip for them.
Yeah,
Guaranteed they will
sell
set the
out,
attendance record of Lucas Oil Stadium.
And
Guaranteed.
I said this yesterday. This would have been the thing. You asked Bob Kravitz, what do you want to see here that has not been here or has not been here in a long time? And this would have been it.
Well,
to me, I could have just said WrestleMania, but getting all three obviously is ridiculous.
And, again, we've had various people on over the last few weeks, few months, and I love to ask that question to people, Andy, of like, okay, what event do you want to see? I think Sarah Meyer, when we had her on to talk about the swim trials, she mentioned the NFL draft.
Yep.
People, I think Chris Gall from Visit India said to us before, how about F1?
Yep.
Back at IMS. The fact that you can get some of these events slotted in what we would consider kind of non-premium times. I know February 1st, we obviously still have college basketball and the NBA going on at that time, and who knows, maybe the Colts will make a run, but that, I think, is what kind of adds to it. Like, literally, we just finished 9 nights in mid-June of nearly 300,000 people inside of Lucas Oil Stadium. Like, you talk about the economic impact of that and just the foot traffic and all of that. You can't, I think, fully kind of speak to just the magnitude of what that is. And it seems like WrestleMania will have, or I should say all three of these events will have a very similar effect.
Yeah, we should maybe, before we take a break here, get someone on. I would love to know the estimated economic impact, because to me, it's, WrestleMania is every bit of the Super Bowl. And it's 2 nights. I mean, it's every bit of the Super Bowl. I wonder what, Royal Rumble and SummerSlam, exactly what they would be like, if that would be the equivalent of, fill in the blank. But I know WrestleMania is going to, that economic impact is going to be every bit.
I can tell you right now because I did an article about it, and I actually did some financial research.
Oh, did you really?
I
Okay.
did, yeah.
Well, go ahead real quick, yeah.
What do we got?
Axios is where I got my information, said WrestleMania estimated to have $1.25 billion of economic impact. Billion, with a B.
Dear Lord.
Because it's like, I'm telling you, it's like a full week and a half, 2 weeks of stuff. And then it says the event itself raked in at least $200 million in tourism alone from just hotel stays and everything like that.
Sure. Yeah, that's not surprising.
And then
I
it said,
didn't think we get the B word.
good for us.
in the press release of WWE, it said that the event coming in Indianapolis, they hope to anticipate all 3 events will be above $300 million of economic impact locally.
That's great. No, that's fantastic. So cannot wait for those tickets. Tickets are going to be pricey for some of those nights. There's no doubt about that. All right, let's take a break. That's your morning checkdown. On the other end, Chris Ballard did a podcast. It was with Michael Lombardi, correct? I'm right with that. It was Michael Lombardi.
GM Shuffle.
The GM Shuffle podcast. We had Lombardi on during the season. He was pretty good. I got his book back there on my desk. I actually read about half of it. So Michael Lombardi talked to Chris Ballard. Ballard said something about the rehab and the availability of Anthony Richardson. We'll give you that update. We'll do it next on this Tuesday. It's the Wake Up Call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, it's Jimmy Cook from It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
One of the more decorated Olympians, certainly from a women's swimming standpoint, in our lifetime, Lilly King. She's going to join us, the IU product, coming up here at 8:30. In and out of the pool, it was quite the last week or so for her over at Lucas Oil Stadium, so we'll chat with her about that coming up at 8:30. Andy Sweeney, yesterday we got an Anthony Richardson update courtesy of Chris Ballard.
Yeah, we did. So Chris Ballard was on a podcast with Michael Lombardi. I did not see this until this morning, so this is a good get by everyone around here seeing it. So Chris Ballard, who, by the way, it was his birthday yesterday, which we didn't mention until the final moments of the show. So happy birthday to Chris Ballard in a big season. And they talked everything, did he and Lombardi. They talked about, obviously the Texans, the way the season ended, and a lot was about Anthony Richardson. And one of the quotes was about Anthony Richardson being good to go. We saw that shoulder, I don't know if you want to say act up, but give him a little bit of soreness during the mandatory minicamp. So he sat that final day, but he's good to go. Here's Chris Ballard yesterday on the health of his quarterback.
He'll be full go. He was full go all the way up until the last day of OTAs. We had 2 heavy throwing sessions the 2 days before. And so we backed off a little bit the last day. And of course, which sends up, anytime you talk about a shoulder in this city, there's some scars that everybody has. So, but he'll be good to go come training camp.
All right, now you said there's something, or the way he said something, that made you raise your eyebrows. What was it? That was, again, from yesterday, the GM shuffle with Michael Lombardi.
Yeah, I just got to be honest about it. Chris Ballard's definition of big throwing days and mine, I guess, are different. And to rehash what happened on, really, let's just go back to the week kind of leading up to Anthony Richardson sitting out the final day of minicamp, but also sitting out a big chunk of the Wednesday, second to last day of minicamp. So, Richardson does not throw over that weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and then even Monday leading into that 3-day minicamp. So the plan was for him to throw again Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday was his normal workload day. Basically this time of year, and I'm going back to the spring, what a normal day looks like for the starting quarterback is about a dozen throws in a team setting. So think 11 on 11, even combines some 7 on 7 reps as well. That's what a normal throwing day looks like. And again, Richardson, while he did get that back stretched out, remember we kind of talked about the back spasm that he had at one point, he still took all of his normal reps on that Tuesday.
Yeah, he didn't miss anything with the back.
He goes to Wednesday, and he only throws 3 times in 11 on 11, period. So, when I hear big throwing days on back-to-back days, I guess I'm confused by that because Wednesday was not a big throwing day at all for Anthony Richardson. He hardly threw it compared to, what he had normally done on that Tuesday. And then, of course, Thursday he sat out. So, does this all of a sudden mean that I think, Chris Ballard is, hiding things? No. I'm not saying that, but I just would disagree on the back-to-back big throwing days. Because, again, he didn't throw Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Threw Tuesday normally. About a dozen reps, and then Wednesday, very, very abbreviated day. And I think that's the question, Andy, now you have a month from today. Because a month from today is the expected first practice at Grand Park. The workload starting July 25th, there's no 6-week break like you're in right now. It is, you don't have a 6-day break between now and, between July 25th and, theoretically when your season ends.
Yeah, in a month, it's go time.
That's where I think you just can't ignore it. And I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to act like, we just sweep this under the rug and we don't talk about it because once July 25th begins, the workload is rampant. When you have the 3-day minicamp, you can go whatever. Okay, he throws Tuesday full, barely throws Wednesday, doesn't throw Thursday, and then nothing happens for a month and a half, and understandably, we just don't talk about it. Well, starting July 25th, you pretty much throw 3 out of 4 days. I'd say closer to 6 out of 8, even 8 out of 10 days. Obviously, once you get in the season, you're going to throw, of course, every Sunday, and then in an ideal world, you're throwing on all 3 of those practice days. So that's where, things, the urgency of those reps, I guess, grow big time on that end.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think there's two things. I think one's we don't know. It's in the future. Is you mentioned throwing at least 3 of those days during the week on a normal week leading up to a normal Sunday game. Is that going to be the case with Anthony Richardson? And then I think I understand why this is being done by Chris Ballard. But he says, him playing off the fact that, we just sat him for one day, and that if you bring up a shoulder injury in Indianapolis, it sets off alarms. And I almost feel like that is rhetoric that's being used, that we don't need to worry about Anthony Richardson, but I understand if you do because of the Andrew Luck stuff. And I'm not worried about Anthony Richardson because I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I'm not worried about Anthony Richardson because of Andrew Luck. I'm worried about Anthony Richardson because of Anthony Richardson. It's Richardson's shoulder. Yes, can we learn something? Did the organization perhaps learn something from Andrew Luck? I mean, I'm sure it probably did, okay? But that's not, like, I have moved KB beyond that. I'm worried about Anthony Richardson actually not being a full go and not being able to throw on the third day of very light work because of Anthony Richardson, because of at some point here and year number 2, I know it's only been 1 year, you got to get this thing going, right? I mean, later on in this conversation, Ballard, I want to play this out at some point, and Lombardi are talking about, extending Anthony Richardson and, that next contract. And I'm like, guys, he played 4 games last year. I mean, we can't. I mean, there's 50 other guys on this team that I'll have a discussion about contract-wise before Anthony Richardson. So I don't want to say the Colts fan is being patronized here, that, oh, look at the Colt fan worrying about AR because of Andrew Luck. I'm worried about AR because he played 15% of the snaps last year. And if this team's going to make the playoffs, it's not going to be able to put the smoke and mirrors Gardner Minshew type season back-to-back years. I don't think that is a healthy thing, a team building thing, or it's a reality check with the more difficult schedule. That's not going to be the case anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I also think we have to remind ourselves, and I hate talking about the Richardson injury stuff. I hate talking about any quarterback injury stuff. I wish, you could treat it like a video game and turn off injuries, but that's not the reality that you live in. You have 2, I guess, injury questions with Richardson. One is the shoulder, which, again, I don't have this, heightened sense of urgency. I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to share my thoughts like I just did on it because he did miss time. It did not go according to plan in the spring period, so I'm going to make sure that we don't lose sight of it. But the other injury question is not shoulder related. It's general wear and tear of him getting hit for 17 straight weeks.
Right.
As a dual threat quarterback, that is very separate from the shoulder. So I really never had too much of concern. I mean, hell, how many times did we talk Anthony Richardson's shoulder from January to, really minicamp? We barely talked about it. I never really felt the need to address it too much. What I have said is the phrase that I'll say endlessly until the season and throughout the year: limit, not eliminate, the amount of design runs you have for him so you can try and tone down, really, the amount of hits he takes. Because to me, that's more of the injury question. Last year, he had suffered 4 injuries on 4 design runs, all outside of the pocket in 173 snaps. Only one of those was shoulder-related. Another one was a concussion that knocked him out. Another one was in the Jacksonville game. I guess 2 of them were in that Jacksonville game. That's the wear and tear of, Andy, all we saw was him play, a week or 2 into October. So, what happens when, look at Lamar Jackson, for example. When Lamar Jackson's had injuries in the NFL, when have they occurred? December.
Right, late in the season, right?
It's the wear and tear of him getting hit throughout the course of the season. That's more of the injury stuff with Richardson that I think is more on the front burner. The shoulder stuff, I think, is back burner. We're still going to make, or at least I am still going to make sure we pay attention to it because the workload is about to ramp up here in less than a month. But I think if you're going to have questions about him playing style injury related, it's more of the wear and tear over 17 games and how your body handles that.
Coming up on the other side, reminder, coming up in about 30 minutes or so, Lilly King is going to join us. What did Chris Ballard say about, the future of quarterback contracts? I want to dive into that, and then if we have time as well, I have a thought on Jarris Walker as we get one day closer to the NBA draft. 8 o'clock hour around the corner. It's a Tuesday. It's a wake-up call. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Some people just know the best.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Looks like a steamy Tuesday with some showers coming later today, possibly into Wednesdays. Hopefully that doesn't impact any outdoor plans for you. Again, the Indians away from home this week, starting July 4th. They'll have a long homestand back at Victory Field. Lilly King going to join us in 30 minutes. Again, we are 36 hours away from the NBA draft. Andy, I saw yesterday one of the draft sites, they pulled together all of the NBA mock drafts out there. Okay. And, trying to find a consensus. Okay, where are these guys slotted if you average out those respective mock drafts? How about Zach Edey and Khalil Ware right next to each other?
Oh, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to see that.
Edey averaged out to just over the 18th overall pick.
Isn't that kind of what we said? Yesterday we set the over-under at 17.5, but Vegas had it 15.5.
Vegas had a tad higher. Yeah. Khalil Ware right behind Edey at 19. 22% of the mocks had Edey in the lottery. Again, lottery is top 14. And 15% of the mocks had Khalil Ware going in the lottery. I did see Jonathan Givony with ESPN. He ended up slotting Edey 15th to Miami.
Yep.
But he mentioned yesterday that he's heard him as high as number 9 to Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, if he went top 10, that would surprise you, would it not? I mean, that would surprise you. That would surprise everybody if Zach Edey went top 10. The way the NBA drafts and, the fact that there's a lot of foreign guys that we just don't know in this draft, to me, if he went top 10, that would be surprising in a good way. And usually with drafts, you're surprised in a bad way, right? You plummet to 28, or you even look at a guy like last year, like Trace Jackson Davis. There was all the scuttle. He'd be a first rounder, back end of the first round, early second round, and then he just sat there to the back end of the draft. So usually draft stuff, it's the negative stuff. It's the TJD stuff. It's Aaron Rodgers. It's Will Levis. It's the humiliation.
Brady Quinn.
Yeah, Brady Quinn. It's the humiliation. Usually it's not, our guy went a lot sooner than we thought. I mean, that'd be great for him. Is there a team out there that you're like, just don't go to that particular team with either one of these guys?
Well, part of me, I did think
like Toronto.
I did think, Toronto.
The Bulls.
I mean, somebody could ask Edey, wouldn't he want to go to Toronto?
Well, it's a great question. Would he want to? I mean, but it's a rather full rebuild going on there.
Sure, but does that mean he would play? And obviously he'd be back home. Miami's interesting because I don't think of Miami as having traditional centers at all. I mean, Bam Adebayo is who they've played with, and they largely kind of go small in that area. But it is interesting how you hear some of this talk about how much more, kind of center focused a lot of these teams appear to be, or at least have that interest with this year's draft. Gavoni wrote up this on Edey. He goes, this combination of size, power, and intensity has been difficult to contain in a workout setting, as there simply aren't many players in this draft equipped to slow him down. One player worked out against Edey compared the experience to trying to guard Shaq.
Okay.
So there you go.
That's pretty good.
Edey, the only player to decline his green room invite. Again, he will be in West Lafayette with his coaches and teammates and family.
Are you okay
there.
with that? You good with that? I bet you
love it.
I bet you like that, don't you?
I think
get the glitz and glamour. Come on, Edey. What are you doing?
Matt Painter's probably very happy that he doesn't have to leave his,
Come on, this is Matt Painter's time. Get on TV, man. Get that tan popping.
House there. Khalil Ware, the right up there. Wizards at 26.
Okay.
Is where the ESPN mock draft had him. He will be in the green room. Right up there. Where could come off the board higher than this with New Orleans and Milwaukee among the teams in need of help at center? Wizards will likely be selecting for long-term upside, and they could view Ware as strong value.
Yeah, but that would be kind of sad. It's okay. This is the perfect situation I'm talking about. The Wizards have the 26th pick because of a trade with the Clippers. But at the back end of the first round, KB, usually you get the really good teams. And so if you're Khalil Ware or even Zach Edey, or if you're anybody, and you fall to the back end of the first round, you're thinking, cool, at least I'm going to a place that is going to have an established head coach, an established system, and everything else, whether it's the Knicks or the Celtics or, Minnesota's a good team. Denver, obviously, a couple years separated from winning the championship. You're thinking, okay, I'm going to be the Joker's backup. And then you look at that, who's at 26? The Washington Wizards.
Well, that
ain't good.
That's where I'm so torn on, what would you want if you're Khalil Ware and Zach Edey? Do you want a good team or do you want a bad team?
To me, you want a good team, good organizations, good coaches.
Jalen Hood-Schifino goes to a team that's like, oh, yeah, here we are, ready-made now, and he never played.
He never plays.
So, that's what I'm saying. If you go to the bad team, maybe you play.
Right. You get better numbers, and then you can get that first contract.
Sure.
Yeah, that might be the case.
Then you get traded to a good team at some point.
This just is what adds to why the draft is such a crapshoot. Because, again, time and place, you just never really know how it's going to work out for you. Jarris Walker, I think, is a decent example. Jarris Walker's a lottery pick. He goes to a team that is good, and now all of a sudden it's like, if you're Jarris Walker camp, you're like, wait a minute, are they too good?
Yeah.
Is my guy going to fit here? And if not, is he a forgotten man all of a sudden with this team? I think that's one of the fascinating elements, which really, I think, separates the NBA draft from even the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think Jarris Walker, and I assume you were leading me into my Jarris Walker conversation. I think Jarris Walker is interesting just because usually, when you have a guy taken in the top 10, it is very rare that team then flips around and has the season that the Pacers have. To go from drafting in the top 10 to the Eastern Conference Finals does not happen. If I told you, if I told you the Portland Trailblazers did that they went from picking 7th, to making the Western Conference Finals next year, you would drug test me.
Sure.
You would think, you would think that I'm crazy. Or the Charlotte Hornets, they pick at 6, Detroit picks at 5. I ask you, and it's just a fun game, where would two things, where would Jarris Walker go, or even Benedict Mathurin, if they were in this year's draft? In other words, would you take Jarris Walker over Reed Shepherd at 3? I think you would probably start there. That's one question. But the second thing, and I think, I've been a little bit wishy-washy on what I want to see this offseason from the Pacers. You can convince me, KB, that the team run it back makes a ton of sense. We had Bob Kravitz on. I know JMV feels this way as well. And there are many who feel this way. Maybe it's the majority that, team run it back made the Eastern Conference Finals. Small tinkerings, guys will get better. Benedict Mathurin will get healthy. Let's see how this team operates. And I understand that. I'm not even against it. And then there's the other side of, hey, if you package some of these guys together, picks, young players, yada, yada, and you can go get someone, another star, if you will, an established player. I don't think they ultimately end up doing that. So yesterday, I went and I just, and you guys lived this more than I did, okay? You did shows on this, but I went back and I looked at the draft profile of Jarris Walker, the versatility that he offered, the kind of NBA-ready body that he offered. And this is going back last year. And again, I don't know how much specifically you guys talked about Jarris Walker, but, the man's body that he has and the defensive effort that he has and the versatility where he can guard multiple positions. And for me, in this offseason, the thing that I feel strongest about, KB, is Jarris Walker. That's it. That's not me denouncing Benedict Mathurin. That's not even having the conversation around Andrew Nembhard or TJ McConnell getting an extension or anything else. I am a believer, and I guess this makes me a little bit less of an Obi Toppin believer. And I like Obi Toppin. If he's here one more year, that would be fantastic. And again, we'll see what happens with his contract. But I am high on Jarris Walker. Yesterday, we had Tony East on, and Tony East mentioned kind of at the back end of an answer, KB, and Jarris Walker, and kind of trailed off like, oh, yeah, Jarris Walker is here. We'll see if he can get on the floor. We talk about this team getting better at defense. I think that, I mean, listen, the untapped resource here is Jarris Walker on the defensive side. I am just bullish on him not being moved. I am bullish on him developing, and you may say, well, Andy, why? Because look at, in the last few years, look at guys that have developed and have got better, and I just happen to think next year, in this offseason, we need not forget that this kid was drafted in the top 10, and all of the draft profiles last year going into the draft were talking about how Jarris Walker was, one of these top players, and you would take him over this guy or that guy. I went back, I was listening to podcasts yesterday and videos that were out there, people breaking down Jarris Walker just because he didn't play a lot this year. You hope it's a unique situation, almost like a Purdue situation where talent goes and it sits and it develops and it does not have to play immediately. I'm bullish on us not forgetting this guy, and this guy being, if we talk about internal growth is the way, the run it back internal growth, to me, Walker is at the top of the list of being a guy who didn't play last year, who absolutely should be in the rotation this year. That's how I feel, especially defense. I mean, the way he was talked about last year going into the draft, the way he would be able to defend at the next level, I mean, that's the main thing right now that the Pacers go into this offseason needing.
So you then want Obi Toppin gone then?
If they made the move, Obi Toppin would be gone, and that cleared the way for Jarris Walker. Yes, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I think
listen, they're not going to be able to give TJ McConnell an extension, pay Andrew Nembhard $17 million, have 2 max contracts, and match somebody who wants to pay more than what, 12, 13 mil plus a year to Obi Toppin?
Yeah, Mark and I had this conversation, I think, when you were up in Michigan, focused on what they do with Toppin, to me, tells you everything they believe or don't believe in Jarris Walker. Like, that's how I almost view the Toppin thing. And I get that there could be a team out there that could offer Toppin
a ridiculous deal,
money,
right?
And frankly, playing time. I mean, Obi Toppin needs to realize he didn't get playing time really in New York consistently. He got some playing time here last year, but it was as a 6th or 7th man pretty much. And with Pascal Siakam back, he's not getting starting playing time here. So, he's got to look at it and say, man, here I am reaching my mid-20s, or hell, at this point, he might even be a little later than that. That's where Toppin's got to kind of look in the mirror. The other thing I would add on Walker is this. I get the draft profile, and I was Jarris Walker or Taylor Hendricks. I mean, that was kind of where I was at throughout the draft. Andy, I don't think we saw any of the draft profile. Like, honestly, I thought we saw
worrisome.
A 180 of it, which I don't want that to act like it's the end of the world, but I saw a guy that has much more potential offensively
than defensively
than I thought.
Yeah.
And then I saw a guy that looked lost defensively more than I would have expected. And, part of me is kind of like, well, to be fair, he's being asked to do so many different things than he was asked to do at Houston. At Houston, they didn't need him to score. They had Jamal Shed. They had, who was the other guard that they had? Marcus Sasser. Like, they didn't need Jarris Walker to score. So now, here in the NBA, he gets set up a little bit more. He's playing a little bit more on the perimeter. He's got a neon green light whenever he gets in the game.
It's a much freer game than you're seeing under Calvin Sampson.
And you saw that. And then defensively, when you're at Houston, you're guarding more of kind of the bigs, if you will. And sure, at times you get switched onto these guards, and that's where you see some defensive potential. But still, you didn't see the ready-made defender that I think a lot of draft pundits had kind of pegged for him. So I probably fall more in the curious camp of, like, who is Jarris Walker? Is he more of the 12-month ago guy that we thought? Is he now developing more offensively? And we'll see if the defense gets back to kind of the expectation pre-draft that was there for him. I'm very curious, and it's probably why I just want to see him play. And I get that now you run into the awkward nature of, are you trying to go all in on win now? Is this a little bit of development? But to me, he's got a body and a frame that you would want, I think, to guard some of these guys that you didn't have an answer for in the postseason. And, Chad Buchanan said it to John a few weeks ago. They feel like there's a thought he could be more of a wing than maybe more of a traditional 4, if you will, if you're going to kind of label a position for him. But I just found his rookie year pretty wild in that it wasn't that he didn't play a ton. It's that when he got in the game, I was like, damn, Jarris Walker's letting it fly, and the three ball's kind of going in. And then defensively, it'd be like, wait a minute, did he just lose his man again? It was such a 180 from what we thought about him entering the draft.
Let me ask you this. If Obi Toppin isn't on this team next year, what does that do to our analysis of this team? I'm trying to search because
it certainly puts more into the Walker boat.
Because if you're paying Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell and Andrew Nembhard, and we're not totally sure if Andrew Nembhard is a starter, those are going to be 3 premium contracts on guys, and all 3 of them might be coming off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not bringing Toppin back, that opens you up to find, I would think, a pretty 3-and-D type of player, which I am very interested in. That to me is kind of attractive, frankly, to what you would be doing there. So, I mean, if you played out those minutes, what was Toppin playing? 20-ish minutes a night?
Okay, so I'm looking at Toppin, it goes month by month on ESPN. So in the playoffs, for instance, against the Knicks, he was 18 minutes a game, 19 minutes a game in the Milwaukee series. And then, for instance, if I just pick out the month of March, he was 18 minutes a game, February, 22 minutes a game. So as the season went, Obi Toppin went from about 23 to 25 minutes a game when he was more of a starter to about 18 minutes a game. He lost about 5 minutes as the season went.
So the obvious answer is Walker would, eat a chunk of those minutes. But again, with Toppin gone financially, you would have money to spend, I think, on a similar, type of player, size-wise. I guess, again, skill set, you'd probably want more defensive-oriented. It's always, I think, kind of been a bit of a bummer for how athletic Toppin is. He doesn't give you more on that end of the floor. So I think that's the route you have to look at. But, again, I'll echo what we said a couple weeks ago and what I just said to you there. The decision on Toppin, to me, says so much about Walker. Because if you bring Toppin back, I don't see where Walker is playing a ton. I mean, you still got Nesmith. You obviously have Benedict Mathurin. I mean, you just said what?
I would agree with you, yeah.
Again, I know Matherin's maybe more of a wing, but still, 2, 3, 4 can be a bit interchangeable with how the NBA
Is it a
operates.
miss then? I mean, if he's not playing next year, if they go and they, give money, they match whatever contract is going to be out there for Obi Toppin. Let's just assume that, that is a conversation here in the next few weeks that we are absolutely going to have. And they bring back Obi Toppin for, whatever it is, 3 years or whatever that contract would look like. That is an admittance then? I mean,
he's 20 years old.
At least it says he's not the guy they thought he was early on.
Well,
I mean, guys don't sit for 2 years and don't play.
I think your timeline has changed a little bit organizationally than what you thought. Miss to me is a little bit too harsh, or, bus labels too harsh. I just think they have to have a very internal look at him, and do they feel like he can impact winning, and the balance of that is also developing him? That, I think, is what you have to look long and hard at. And, to me, I still am intrigued by him. I think a lot of it just depends on how they view it, of where are we getting better defensively? And that, to me, is the biggest question. It's, I love Benedict Mathurin. Love him. That dude is not giving you something on the defensive end of the floor that's going to significantly improve you.
Right.
Or at least we haven't seen that yet, is probably the better way to say it. Have his eyes opened up more in watching the game? Did sitting for, a month plus, did that help him out in that area? I guess those are questions that you have to have. But, again, I still think, Tyrese Halliburton lifts your offensive ships. Like, he does that with his style and how gifted he is offensively. You need guys that are just going to flat out help you out defensively, because Halliburton and Siakam aren't those guys. And so that's where I do think you have to have more of that focus personnel-wise on the defensive end of the floor.
Lilly King going to join us here in about 15 minutes. One other NBA note that I wanted just to throw your way that I actually find ridiculous, even though it's happened, is 2 things. So we had the J.J. Redick sound from yesterday. Let's cue that up, Mark. J.J. Redick. Did you happen to see any of his press conference yesterday? Now, JJ turned 40 yesterday.
So I gave a shout out to Rick Carlisle.
Okay, so JJ Redick turned 40 yesterday, and this is only, 5-6 seconds? He was asked about, if he's heard over the last several days or weeks people being critical of his hire, of him being hired as the Lakers coach. And he goes on like a 45-second answer, and then at the very end, he gave us this.
I don't really have a great answer for your question, because I really don't give a
All right, and so the reason I bring this up is question number one, is J.J. Redick liked? Because remember at Duke, he was very much not liked at Duke.
Yeah, I do enjoy his basketball insight.
So I like J.J. Redick, but I guess what I'm trying to say is he became a broadcaster and then got liked. He was not liked during his playing days, I don't feel like. Maybe that dissipated some in the NBA, but everyone can remember J.J. Redick at Duke, and he was not liked. And then he was the cocky guy on ESPN that went after Stephen A. Smith. I mean, basically told Stephen A. on his own show multiple times that he didn't know what he was talking about. And so people then, we all cheered him on. So the J.J. Redick thing is interesting. And then I think is it Nick Wright, I think, of Fox Sports was the first one. And then I started to kind of see this more on Twitter over the weekend. And Mark, we probably should have talked about this on Friday when KB was off, is people were saying if you're going to crush Jeff Saturday for being the head coach of the Colts, why aren't you crushing J.J. Redick? the parallel of the broadcaster, becoming the head coach. And while I appreciate people trying to throw some shade, and some of it is, there were other guys that people wanted to see get the job maybe more than J.J. Redick. I know Sam Cassell's name has been very well thrown out there quite a bit, and a couple of other guys. And I smiled because the two things are not the same other than the guys worked at ESPN and were broadcasters. I mean, Jeff Saturday was at the middle-ish tail end of a disastrous season. J.J. Redick's taking over like any normal coach during the season before the actual draft of the Los Angeles Lakers. And, I mean, let's be honest about that Colts team compared to this Laker team, at least is going to have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So I appreciate people trying to do that, but they're bringing in my man Jeff Saturday to try to slight J.J. Redick. What do you think of that?
What's Jeff Saturday up to these days? Is he back on ESPN?
Well, he's back on ESPN, yeah.
Well, I think he's taking time off for now. Maybe we'll see some pancakes and stuff once.
No, I mean he was on ESPN halfway through the year last year.
I mean recently. I think he's taking the summer off until camps start.
Yeah. So he didn't go back to the high school coaching gig?
I don't know.
I mean, would you?
Should we try to get him on?
How'd that work out? Did you guys see
what he's up to?
Did you guys see Nate Bjorkgren getting back into it?
Oh God!
Speaking of coaching gigs.
No, where at?
Is he one of the most obscure head coaches in NBA history?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Do you think Pacers fans even remember him?
No one will remember him.
I only remember him because I have these drops that I have from him. That's the only time I remember him.
I wouldn't mind you opening that sound folder up at some point.
I'm doing it right now.
I mean, it's summer radio. It's June. Where's he at?
Did he join the Trailblazers? Is that what it was? I probably should double check that. He joined some staff yesterday.
Okay, so he joined an NBA staff then yesterday.
The most memorable thing for Bjorkgren that year was remember when Goga and Greg Foster started yelling at each other during the timeout? Does anybody remember that?
It's just about the readiness and the togetherness. They have a very high care factor.
Gosh, his post-game press conferences were unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
He really got I'm going to carry his water here. Really got, the hand was dealt to him pretty poorly. Oladipo and TJ Warren barely even played that year. Pritchard's still forcing Turner Sabonis down his throat.
Oh yeah,
he
had no chance.
I mean, he's running O'Shea Brissett, Edmund Sumner out.
Hey, that's a champion.
I think Doug McDermott was starting, 20, 30 some games that season.
I think they just wanted the Nick Nurse learning tree. They're hoping he would bring some of that to Indiana. It never happened.
That was the learning as crazy tree. As it sounds, and part of that's playing. That team was one game out of the playoffs.
That is unbelievable, isn't it?
Because they had a high care factor.
During a COVID year, and then Bjorkgren gets fired. I mean, it's kind of wild. I mean, obviously, it's worked out for the Pacers since. But it is kind of wild.
Did anyone locally stand up and say, hey, he was one game out of the playoffs during an extremely difficult COVID year. How about give the guy another season?
I think you could say that and also be like,
and also not
Rick
believe
Carlisle is an upgrade.
Is a way better coach, right?
But I feel like people view the Bjorkgren era as like he won 15 games and it was an utter disaster. And it's like, well,
they view him as Kenny Payne at Louisville.
Yeah, I don't, that's, I think, a little too unfair to him. I don't think he certainly got dealt the proper hand from a personnel standpoint on that end. Yeah, Jeff Saturday, JJ Redick, I hadn't even thought about that.
Well, I hadn't either. And again, I understand
I guess
they're coming from
similar, right?
Well, they're from ESPN, but again, one's taken over middle of a bad season.
Sure.
One's taken over a team that still made the playoffs, a team that has LeBron and Anthony Davis. I mean, when Jeff Saturday took over, I know the Colts beat the Raiders, but I mean, that team was heading nowhere. I mean, you knew that. That was
tell that to Jim Irsay.
Get to the end of the season, get me through the last month and a half of the year so we can get to Cancun. That's what the Colts were going through.
Lilly King in 5 minutes. Before that, let's check it out.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, let's do this quick. 2-1, that's your final last night NHL Game 7. The Florida Panthers get the win there. Even in the losing effort, Edmonton's Connor McDavid does win MVP, the Conn Smythe Trophy. So over 3 decades in the making, the Panthers, after the heartbreak last year, they get up 3-0 this year. They come back. They lose the next 3 games, but they do win at home. 2-1, your final last night there in Florida.
Pretty entertaining last night on the Diamond. Obviously, College World Series, you had Tennessee capture what was a very, very special year for them as they win the College World Series, best 2 out of 3 over Texas A&M. But from a Major League Baseball standpoint, some individual highlights, really. Ellie De La Cruz hitting a 430-foot homer at Great American Ballpark off the boat in center field. Vlad Guerrero Jr. hits one out of Fenway Park over the Green Monster. So those 2 special talents on full display. And the Cubs lost on a walk-off walk.
Mm-hmm. That's all. You should have led with that. I don't know
Save the best for last.
Yeah, how are we not leading with that? Indianapolis.
I'm a beaten man at this point. I have no
retort. You really are a sad man. You went from confidence and hope. In the last month and a half has been terrible to see Mark Dykton's face after
Nothing
every
like
one of these Cubs scores.
The West Coast trip, waking up to the walk-off walk loss.
Oh, it's terrible.
I think that's better than watching it live, but I don't know. That could be debated.
Well, did you see when the Colorado game, Colorado won the other night over the weekend on the time limit. They beat the Nationals. The Nationals pitcher ran out of time, and that was it. Third base, he scored. It was done. Indianapolis Indians off last night in Rochester. Tonight, 6:45. Let's take a break. On the other end, she's an Olympian. She's also engaged. Lilly King joins us next here on the Wake Up Call. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Prescriptions require an online consultation.
KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Lilly King, personal best, PB, I'm talking swimming geek, I know, but she's one of the best pullers in the sport. And one thing she loves to do is race.
Oh, here comes Lilly King. I don't care if it's a prelim, a semi, or in your backyard pool. And again, Lilly King has something to prove here. She trains at Indiana here, and it's King who says, all right, Alex, I saw enough of you. Bring it on. Yeah.
She is a legend in this state and certainly one of the more decorated swimmers we have seen as well. She is the one and only Lilly King, and she joins us now on the Payless Liquors hotline. And obviously, we'll talk a whole lot about her exceptional Olympic trials heading back to the Olympics for a third straight time. But Lilly King, I've got to start here. Walk us through your now fiance and the proposal. Did you know this was coming? How rattled were you? I was nervous for you with how out of breath you were in getting out the words that I believe you said yes on several occasions. I was very nervous for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it definitely, I was expecting it more towards the end of the summer. I mean, we've been living together for about 4 years, so it wasn't something completely out of the blue. But yeah, that night right after my 200 breast, I was not expecting.
Now, you had a hell of a comeback in the 200-meter breaststroke there to qualify in that event. I hate to go here. If the comeback doesn't occur and you don't make that race, is James still going on a knee?
I don't think that was completely planned out. So I think he said, yeah, he would. But I think, and not that I would have had a different answer, but my mood would have been a little different if I had gotten third.
Lilly King,
thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, one more on this. So I proposed to my wife, I don't know, like 7 years ago or something like that. And I always wonder if you have like a little speech, does the woman know, hey, he's getting ready to get down on one knee and propose? You know, he had it seem like about a 30, 40-second speech there, Lilly. Did you know that's what was ultimately coming?
Well, I figured once he was down on deck, because security is super tight at trials. So once he got down on deck, and then he was wearing all the fancy clothes. And I was like, what is going on? Like, where does swim meet? And then I realized that was kind of when I figured it out, when I understood why he was on deck.
Now
Great work, James.
Who was it that told you to take your swimming cap off when you walked over to him? Who was that? Because you said that on TV, but I just can't remember who it was.
Yeah, it was Annie Laser. So she's one of my best friends, and we swam the 200 breast in Tokyo together.
That's great.
Shout out to
Well,
Annie
good for you.
for that. Again, Lilly King off to Paris, the first American swimmer ever to compete in both the breaststroke distances in 3 straight Olympics. What was the Lucas Oil Stadium experience like for you, Lilly?
Oh, it was unbelievable. I mean, I never thought we'd be able to swim in a football stadium, and to be able to do it in Indy, I think made it just that much more special. So I just remember looking up into the crowd, and I couldn't see all the way up. So it was something that was just out of this world for a swim meet, and that's, I mean, for me, probably never going to happen again. So it was really cool to be able to have that experience.
Like, for people that consumed it on TV, it's easy for it to look great. I mean, it's the glitz and the glamour and all of this, and oh my gosh, the big crowds and the lights and all of that. But I was curious more for the swimmers, like, logistically, did it make sense? Like, was there anything, I guess, any tweaks you would have, like, routine-wise? Was that thrown off at all? Like, how was it for you guys who are literally, you know, qualifying for the biggest meet in the entire world and going to the Olympics?
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't that much different than another, like, big meet that we would have. The only thing is that everything was kind of really spread out, so there was a lot of walking. You just had to kind of make sure you had a little bit more time than normal to get to places. But, I mean, other than that, once you got that figured out, it was pretty easy, and I think we all had our routines, and it worked out really well.
The great Lilly King with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline on the Fan on this Tuesday. I know it's practice, it's lifting, it's nutrition, it's everything for the next several weeks, but what will this time look like before you go over to Paris and get ready for the Olympics?
Yeah, so I'm home for a week, kind of to get everything in order and train a little bit, and then we've got a training camp in Raleigh, and then we'll fly to Croatia, do a training camp there, and then we'll head over to Lilly and get ready to go.
Lilly, the Russian we hate, is she still around?
She actually tried to qualify under a neutral status. I don't know if you've seen, a lot of the Russians are banned right now. She tried to qualify under neutral status, and she did not qualify. So my girl Yulia will not be at the Olympics as of right now.
Are we? Well, I mean,
don't we hate the Australians now?
Well, part of me is kind of torn on that. Part of me is happy, but then part of me wanted to see you wag the finger again. So are we happy about that?
I'm kind of over it at this point. I don't super care. She's not going to be would not be a medal contender. So it would have just been I think a story on the news.
She is Lilly King, again, the first American swimmer ever to compete in both breaststroke distances, coming up for her third straight Olympics. This is it, by all accounts. We're not running it back in LA in 2028?
No, I'm going to enjoy the experience in LA.
And just the overall goal then for third Olympics, obviously extremely decorated, but, is it realistic, do you feel like, to, medal, possibly win gold in both of those?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, each meet's different, and you don't know who's going to be on and ready to go. So, yeah, I don't see why medaling in both and potentially winning is not an option.
Isn't it Lilly King with us on the Payless Liquors hotline? During the broadcast, a lot was made of the swimming battle now between the Americans and the Australians. What can you tell us about that? The back and forth, it's been there in the last few years, and I would imagine that's going to be around the forefront in Paris, is it not?
Oh, yeah, it'll be there. The Aussies had a really, really great showing at Worlds last year, and they got real excited about it. So we'll see what little brother has to turn out here at Paris, but I think the Americans are ready to go.
Are they mad about the ringing of the bells?
Cowbell, right?
The cowbells that you guys do? Isn't that the problem? They get annoyed by that?
Right. So yeah, every time we send somebody off to their race to the ready room, we do the USA chant, we ring a cowbell, and we've got an air horn. We're obnoxious, but it's just kind of our send off. It's tradition, and they hate it. So I would not be surprised if there are a lot of cowbells in the team area.
Gosh, I love it.
That's great. Lilly King with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Now, just following your career, knowing you, if you read anything on the internet, I mean, you speak very openly about being confident and downright cocky, and we love that, as you can tell here. If you're the cockiest, who's second on that list, Lilly?
Ooh, on the women's side?
Yeah, on the women's side. Let's just stick with the women's side.
I'm gonna go with Simone Manuel.
Okay.
She's a confident woman, and she gets her shit done, and she's definitely up there, but definitely well deserved.
She certainly does. Some impressive swims from her at Lucas Oil this past week. Walk us through what happened yesterday at Lucas Oil Stadium. Looked like you guys headed into the Colts locker room, and a lot of gear waiting for you.
Yeah, it was awesome. We were waiting outside the Colts locker room, and they're like, okay, guys, go get your gear. And we just thought it was just going to be our suitcases just in a pile. And we're like, why are you guys filming this? And then, we walked in, and they had put our names on the lockers in the Colts locker room, and all of our gear was in the lockers. And, it was really, really cool. Something that I get to experience a whole lot. It was fun to be able to do that.
Yeah, the pictures looked awesome, and all your guys' emotion was pretty cool to see. Walk us through, and I know you've told the story before, but walk us through some of the COVID prep you had for the Tokyo Olympics. Like, if I could have this wrong, but I feel like you were swimming literally in lakes in Bloomington. Walk us through what some of that looked like for you in your last Olympics.
Yeah, definitely. It was that summer of 2020 was crazy. Fortunately, things kind of got a little bit more back to normal in 21, but we were just trying to find pool space. And when the pools weren't open, we found pooler. So, we were swimming in a pond. We were driving, from Bloomington to north side of Indy to train for a little while. We were training in Martinsville for a little while. So, we were doing pretty much anything we could to find water time, because for swimming it's not like you can't cross train for swimming at all. You have to actually swim. So it was a pretty crazy time and kind of fun, actually. Weirdly enough, but it was wild, and we were pretty desperate to find somewhere to swim.
Lilly King's favorite Bloomington establishment is what? We'll go restaurant, we'll go bar, either or.
Ooh, I'm gonna go Bloomington Bagel Company.
Ooh, great choice.
And bar, I'm gonna go Brothers.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Get some great deals at Brothers.
I-
Slide over to Bluebird. Slide over to the vid after.
I like that. Lilly King with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Do you know about any of the accommodations in Paris? I have seen that Team USA is taking over their own AC units, their own air conditioner units to the games. Do you have any idea the layout where you'll be staying in any of the accommodations there in Paris?
Yeah, and they usually just show up and they say, "Here's your room," and that's,
And that's
about
it.
But I'm not shocked by the AC unit thing. That's we've been known to put all new mattresses in our dorms. Team USA is we're kind of the princesses of the Olympic Village, but we like it that way.
And last one for me and Lilly King with us. How much have you followed the Caitlin Clark phenomenon here in Indianapolis? Really before she got to the Fever, but definitely since she's been with the Fever. You've been an in-state person, kid, girl, woman. How have you consumed what she has done over the first month or so of the season?
Oh, I'm eating it up. I love it. The Fever actually came to the meet one day, and I missed them by maybe 10 seconds. I was walking out the door to go to the hotel, so I was just upset by that. But yeah, it's been awesome to see, and I think just kind of the revolution she's started in women's basketball has been so cool to see, and I'm definitely a big fan.
Lilly King heading to her third straight Olympics. Again, the first American swimmer ever to compete in both breaststroke distances, and she is off to Paris here in about a month. Lilly, most importantly, congrats on the engagement. Hell of a comeback in that 200-meter. Shout out to James for executing that, and good luck in Paris.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Lilly King right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. 5 medals, of course, a couple golds in Rio. Do you remember her wagging finger at...
Oh, yeah.
Trying to pronounce something Ova.
Good luck. Yeah.
I just called her the Russian girl,
the
clearly.
Russian, yeah.
I
We
wasn't
moved
into
on to hating the Australians.
butchering that, but she is certainly one of the more decorated swimmers we have had in our American history, so cannot wait to see her add to that coming up in Paris.
Didn't have hitting the dump button on Lilly King on my bingo card, but I had to.
I think you almost should expect that with her.
I know.
It
still caught me off
got
guard.
Some spice.
Yeah, she felt comfortable, though. Right?
That's good.
Here's what I said. It was on Thursday when they got engaged. You were off on that last Friday, and me and Mark were talking about it. Mark, you remember my take on it was nobody crushed the James guy. No one crushed him for doing it then. If you do that at like a football game or like, the second quarter timeout of the Colts Texans, everyone's going to mock you and make fun of you. But everyone, because it was, primetime nightly TV and we all love Lilly King, everyone viewed it as a heartfelt moment. Usually we crush people that get engaged in a very look-at-me type way.
I think a fan maybe is a little different than doing it with one of the athletes.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, well, probably. Yeah, and again, we like Lilly King. That's the difference.
I'm a little bit more nervous of if you watch that race, she is like a half body length down with like 50, 75 meters to go.
It didn't look like she was going to get second.
And
Not
she
at
comes
all.
back and luckily gets second.
Poor James.
And qualify. I'm thinking, does James just turn around and walk off the,
he's got
pool
to.
deck
Listen,
if she doesn't get second?
If she doesn't qualify for the 200, he cannot get down on one knee. Because Lilly would have been in such a bad mood, a foul mood after losing or not qualifying in that race, KB. Me and you both know it. He would have had to eject. He would have had to, pivot and, scramble like a quarterback and figure something out down the road.
I'll just save it for Paris in a month.
Yeah. That was your take why not do it in front of the Eiffel Tower?
Don't do it in front of the Georgia Street Eiffel Tower. Do it in front of the real Eiffel Tower.
Sometimes the Olympics can be so corrupt. I don't know if security's letting them.
That's a great
through
point.
That 285,000. That was the number released yesterday. North of that, across the 9 days there in Lucas Oil Stadium. So when you break that down, we're talking 30,000 ish. And again, there's an afternoon session and an evening session with that. But obviously, just massive, massive numbers. We mentioned Lilly King there in the interview. It was really cool. USA Swimming put up some pictures of it yesterday of just their raw reactions walking into the Colts locker room, and where Anthony Richardson's locker is, and DeForest Buckner's locker is, and Michael Pittman Jr.'s. Their names are plastered up there with the Team USA logo, and then all their gear with that. It was pretty cool to see some of their emotions on that. I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show because last night I'm watching the Olympic track and field trials. I was kind of flipping back and forth. Shout out to Cole Hocker, the Indy product, an unbelievable kick there in the 1500 meter to not only qualify but win. But in the 800 meter women, the defending Olympic champ tripped and fell, and she's done. Like,
it's over.
She didn't have enough time to obviously get back on her feet and qualify. I interviewed Hunter Armstrong, Olympic swimmer, on Sunday down on Georgia Street. And in his 100-meter backstroke semifinal, again, backstroke, you're in the pool to start.
Is he the one that fell or his foot
slipped?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Coming off the wall.
And he had to come all the way back. Yeah,
and
he
that
lost
is a
a couple
100-meter
seconds.
race, so down and back.
Oh, yeah.
And he is in 8th place at 50 meters. And now that was a semifinal, so he just needed to get top 4. And he was able to come back. But, again, to me, that thrill, obviously the jovial nature to Lilly King qualifying is part of it. But then, the people that just have that one little, you've been training for 4 years, and that slip could be everything in ruining your hope for it. To me, it is some unbelievable drama, as equally as joyous as it is just gut-wrenching watching the woman last night fall in the 800 meter. It's really unlike anything in sports. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic with that statement, but again, like the men's and women's basketball team, it's a selection process.
Well, there's no politics. There's no politics involved. You win or you lose or you go home. Yeah, that's it.
LeBron James has an off night. Team USA still probably going to pick him. If, Hunter Armstrong in that case, or, again, the girl last night, 800 meters, if something, flukish or freakish happens, boom, you're out. So just qualifying is absolutely excruciating. So that right now, the track and field trials with Lee Diffie, obviously everyone knows him from IndyCar TV voice. He's on the call of those. Drama-filled, to say the least.
Who else got engaged? Do you guys have any idea in the sports world in the last 48 hours? I'm looking at Mark Dighton, so it has something to do with a couple teams that he may hate. There's a very
get on a knee.
No,
Mark's a big fan.
Jordan Love got engaged.
Oh, good for him.
Over the weekend,
Probably
Jordan
the only
Love
ring
got
he's going to
engaged.
see, I would say, in a long time.
Packers suck.
Colts Packers week 2. Is that right?
Oh man,
Lambeau action.
We're gonna be. Mark's gonna be all in on the Colts that week. Boy, we're gonna be.
I'll put up my
charge.
mortgage on the Colts.
Is Jordan Love hateable?
Oh, Jordan Love's not hateable unless you hate the Packers.
Well, that would
why would he be
hand raised?
Okay, I feel like I don't know anything about Jordan Love.
No,
at all. I don't know
he doesn't
about
come,
Jordan Love.
He doesn't come with just the venom that I have for Aaron Rodgers.
No, nor should
Aaron
he.
Rodgers is just a complete tool. Jordan Love, I don't really know a ton about yet. He could get there at some point, but it's going to be a hard mountain to top.
Again, this goes for everything when it comes to sport hatred. It's tool plus they're good.
Oh, yeah, they have to be good.
You have to be good. No one hates wow, I hate Giannis's little brother. Well, he stinks. Who cares?
Oh, it's Giannis's brother that you don't like. I love that.
Aaron Rodgers, I want a full, healthy 17 games, but I want him to just get pounded into the ground all 17 games.
Now, Jordan Love, this would have been, 5 years ago now, but there was a lot of chatter about the Colts having draft interest
I remember him.
in Jordan Love. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was the draft after Andrew Luck's retirement. I think it was the first one. So the thought there was, okay, it's not Tua, Burrow, and Justin Herbert, I think, were the 3 early quarterbacks there. And, Chris Ballard not blown away with the full character of Jordan Love. That was a big reason why the Colts decided to bypass on him. And then, they had the 13th pick. They traded that for Buckner, but then not trade back into round 1 to get Love. Because he was, mid-20s, somewhere around there?
Yeah, he was. Again, they got some value on him. So congratulations to Lilly King. Congratulations to Jordan Love as well. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 2. It's The Fan. It's a Tuesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Hey, JV, in summertime.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
If you missed Lilly King, that'll be up on the podcast. Outstanding per usual. One dumb button. I had the over-under kind of 1.5 with the never afraid to say anything. Lilly King. We'll get to our Colts question of the day coming up on the other side as we are now less than a month away from training camp. But boys, can I entertain you with a golf story about drinking beer?
Oh, let's go.
Course.
Yeah. Now, is this your story or is this a professional story?
We're talking professional.
Okay,
here,
let's go.
All right. So this week we've got the Rocket Mortgage Classic up in Detroit.
Okay.
Kind of a lower tier PGA Tour event. And for some of these PGA Tour events, you get Monday qualifiers. So the common folk, Andy Sweeney, if he wanted to, could try and qualify for the PGA Tour event. Basically you got a handful of spots available. Now you got to play very good golf. And Nick Benz from former IUPUI golfer, one of the more decorated players in program history, graduated from there a handful of years ago. He shoots 65 yesterday early in the qualifier.
Okay, good for him.
And he's very excited and very nervous. And the round ends, and there's still several groups left to play. So he's, watching the leaderboard. He's unsure exactly if 65 will be good enough or not, but he's extremely nervous. So to try and calm the nerves, we all have been there on a Monday afternoon at noon, right? Haven't we?
Sure, yeah.
Nick Benz decides to throw back un cold one, a second cold one. He throws back 3 of them as he waits for players to come in. And as the leaderboard starts to play out, Nick Benz realizes, I'm now heading into a playoff.
Oh, no.
For a spot in the Rocket Mortgage Classic. So 3 beers deep, Nick Benz walks back to the tee box, and he is in a playoff. 5 guys for 4 spots, and 8 holes later, Nick Benz survives the playoff.
Oh, good for him.
3 beers in the system.
Good for him.
And he is now in the Rocket Mortgage Classic here coming up this weekend.
That's the old John Daly strategy.
I like that.
IUPUI legend. He works at Golf Galaxy.
Okay.
He said he had to inform the boss, I won't be making it to the 7:30 shift on this Tuesday morning.
I think they'll understand, you would hope.
And maybe what I love the most about this story, and Monday Q School on Twitter, it's an account that I love to follow. I was actually following this live yesterday because I'm a nerd, and I loved it. We have 4 beer companies that have reached out to him asking for sponsorship on him this week.
He was on the edge there. Once you have 3, you either are going to commit to a night of beer drinking or you're going to stop there.
Well,
and so,
I think 3 could calm the nerves. 4, and that 4-footer might look like, a little wobbly on that end. So
plus
shout out to Nick Benz.
Plus he'd have to break the seal and go to the bathroom every other hole, but that's an entirely different
story. Is Nick in the trees peeing again? No, he's just nervous.
Our Colts question of the day, 9 o'clock hour. It's next here on this Tuesday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Jake Query here. Grab your guy.
the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, you heard it there on the promo. Night 1 of the NBA draft coming up tomorrow night. As of now, it'll just be night 2 for the Pacers. And by night 2, what do we mean? Early afternoon? Or I should say early evening?
It's 4 o'clock, yeah.
4 o'clock Thursday.
That's great.
That's so odd to me.
It is such an odd. Now, what's going on TV-wise on Thursday?
I know. I'm
trying to think.
What's on Thursday night? I mean
they don't care about hockey, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, the College World Series is over.
It's
Hockey's over. I'm trying to think of what. I don't. Maybe there's a WNBA game. I don't know what NBA has.
If it's not Caitlin Clark, then that's the only. I hate to say that's the only one that matters, but yeah, I mean, it's not Caitlin Clark. They play at 10 o'clock in Seattle.
ESPN would want the Bronny James night selection to be in prime time. So tomorrow night, round 1, and then the NBA again has shifted to a 2-day draft. Thursday early evening.
ESPN doesn't even have a WNBA game that night. It's so weird.
What is their programming at night?
I don't know. I'd have to look up. But there's 4 WNBA games. None of them are on ESPN on Thursday night. Yeah, 2 of them are on Prime Video. One's on NBA TV, and then Links and Wings, it doesn't even say that it's on television.
You know, working a job where we have to get up, you could say earlier maybe than the average man or woman, I'm fine with some sporting events that start a little bit earlier. I know most people are at work or, dealing with the kids or running to sporting events.
Thursday's an awful time.
Oh, it's a terrible time, unless you're me. I can sit outside and watch it. No, it is a terrible
time.
time.
Dealing with kids? I don't I pick up the kids from daycare or usually around 4 o'clock. Yeah. So it's I don't know. It just seems like an awful time.
Now, my wife at 4 o'clock goes off to yoga. And that's me and Little Gas doing what we do, which is hang out. So we'll be hanging out, and we'll be doing this.
It says at 7 o'clock on Thursday night on ESPN is the NHL Awards. That's what it is. So night 2 of the NBA draft is at 4, and at 7 is at the NHL Awards.
Yeah, but already the season just ended. Don't they have to wait? Like baseball waits 2 months before they announce who won.
And then it's UFC at 8 and UFC at 9. I mean, I thought UFC was at midnight.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I would say very odd.
I have no idea.
We are less than a month away again from the Colts opening up training camp. Pretty much report day, July 24th. We'll get the full schedule announcement here coming up. Oh, I guess, is there a presidential debate coming up?
Oh, that's what it is. That's what it is. Supposedly, oh my God, how could we forget about that?
Shows you where we're at.
That's going to be some.
I can't think of anything I want to be locked in more to.
Well,
we got to put this at 4. Everyone wants to watch that.
In fairness of the NBA, that could be some interesting live television.
Thank you,
on
Tyson,
that debate.
For
That's
that.
Totally us idiots are sitting here. Is it the NHL awards? Is that why ESPN's doing it?
Tony Cass about ready to barge into the studio and bash us across the side of the head.
It's a big day for Hammer.
Announce
Rob Kendall.
God bless the overnight on that
God bless IBC.
Again
on Thursday night.
Coming up tomorrow night, we'll have the announcement of not only, of course, the NBA draft of round 1, but the Colts training camp schedule. We'll begin our Colts Question of the Day series. If you missed it earlier, we will give you that update, Anthony Richardson related, that Chris Ballard shared on Michael Lombardi's question or on his podcast. But Andy, I know a question on your mind, Colts related.
2 different things. Let's get the fancy open here.
Time now for your Colts Question of the Day.
That was very fancy.
You like that? I have 2 things that I'm wondering about. Number 1, you need to go to the website, not UKB, you wrote the story, but for people that haven't checked it out, 1075thefan.com, you gave a projected 53-man roster after the mini camp a couple weeks ago. Obviously, that can change when you have injuries, whatever may happen, additions, subtractions to any team. So I have a question about the 53-man roster, and then just kind of on top of it, I want to play this Chris Ballard clip as well. Here's Chris Ballard talking about how he's running it back with his defense. Basically, the same defense he had last year. Latu obviously drafted. We'll see if those other pieces work their way into late-round guys. But here's Ballard yesterday with Michael Lombardi on his defense and running it back with many of the same guys.
Guys that we decided to re-sign, and when you started matching and looking at the market in comparison, didn't think there was enough of a difference for us not to go back with the guys we know. And look, I know a lot of times people always want change. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do is they see the shiny car, on the other side. But a lot of times the players, you know what they are, who they are, what type of teammates they are, what the kind of work they're going to put in. And that kind of continuity, I thought, as we were building, especially over the second half of the season, will bode well for us this year.
Okay, so I guess it's two questions of the day, but they're kind of intertwined together with the 53-man roster. Number one, the 53-man roster, I want to do a segment with you on it, but I got to be honest, we talked about this last week. I don't disagree with you on any of your picks. I think it's a little bit ridiculous.
There's 53 of them. You got to disagree on one of them.
I think you're right that they'll take 5 tight ends. I don't think they should take 5 tight ends. That would be, I guess, one disagreement, but I think ultimately they will. I guess my question of the day, and it kind of intertwines with that, will the downfall of this Colts team be the defense and the defensive backs specifically? ESPN put out a story today kind of ranking projected starting lineups, where teams are good, where teams are bad, where they're good, where they're great, where they're weak. And they really beat over the head. I think it's Aaron Schatz that actually did it, and Seth Walder, that they just don't believe in the defensive backfield of the Colts. They like Kenny Moore. Juju Brents could become something, but the combination of not adding everyone and then some of these guys that really need to take a big step forward, I mean, that would be my question. I mean, if we go back and this team doesn't make the postseason, obviously Anthony Richardson injury aside, is it the defensive backfield that we look at and say Chris Ballard missed on it? And by the way, I'll add this. Chris Ballard has, to me, he has planted his flag with these guys. I mean, he has publicly been very supportive. These are my guys. I'm going to ride or die with these guys, and we know what happened last year at the end of the season.
Can we start there?
Yeah, sure.
The continuity as gospel is just such a tiresome thought from the Colts. It's just, okay, what's continuity got you in the last 8 years? I mean, because that's largely how they've operated.
Well, they act like bringing in a free agent is just going to throw
it's
off
the end
the
of the
whole
world. You're acting
feel
like
within
all
the
of
team.
a sudden you're just throwing some cancer into your locker room, and I'm like, wait a minute. Frankly, I think a little outside edginess would be probably good for this team. It would spark some. Don't you always hear competition?
Look at A.D. Mitchell. Look at A.D. Mitchell.
The thought.
Yeah.
It's all about creating competition, making guys feel uncomfortable, kind of pushing them to the edge a bit. And what's worrisome to me about rolling with this, young secondary, et cetera, the schedule did not offer you any favors out of the gate. I mean, we mentioned Jordan Love earlier. You face the top level quarterbacks on your schedule right away. Right away. It is so quarterback front loaded out of the gate, of course, with CJ Stroud and Jordan Love. But this whole continuity and cohesion and running it back and acting like that is the exact blueprint that you need, to me, is just so tiresome. I think an acquisition or two to increase competition in the secondary, particularly veteran competition, would do very well for that group and would still allow for you to grow some of your young guys as the season moves along and, possibly say, all right, we don't need to rely on the youth for 60-some snaps in week 1. Maybe we will be comfortable come week 10 or 11. But again, your quarterbacks that you face elite-wise are earlier in the season. So I guess I would start there. To your, main point, Andy, I would say this. I do think the pass rush has the ability to cover up a lot. And I think it's needed to cover up a lot in the secondary. And I will continue to kind of plant my flag here when it comes to secondary. I'm a little bit more, if you're going to make me pick, I'm more cornerback optimistic than I am safety optimistic.
Okay.
I am very, very concerned about the safeties and the depth. Love Julian Blackmon. Can't ignore his injury history. Next to him, a guy you've benched multiple occasions, Nick Cross, is the cemented starter, I would say, entering training camp. And we'll see how the depth plays out there with him. But you've benched guys behind him before. So that's not a ringing endorsement there. So that's kind of how I view the secondary. Like, I can somewhat maybe talk myself into a young corner or two. I don't really feel that confidence at all at safety.
Well, I would agree with you. I would say as a whole, it feels like the defensive backfield is the unit, or the two units, I guess I should say, that Ballard has kind of put his neck on the line for this season. If you made me look at their roster, and while, Jelani Woods at tight end, and while they don't have anyone dynamic at tight end, I think they have enough to get by with the combination of the 4 and 5 guys, and probably 5 guys we talked about that are going to make it. I think there'll be enough there that if no one stands out, those 4 and 5 guys, you'll be able to put their numbers together at the end of the year. And I think you'll probably look at it and not be, too angry about what you got from the tight end position. I'm just worried that safety and corner is just simply not going to be good enough high end wise. And I'm worried that safety is not going to be nearly deep enough. I mean, we did well into the season segments on Nick Cross not playing last year. I mean, we did those segments about Nick Cross. And so the defensive backfield is what is keeping me even more so than some of the Anthony Richardson stuff. Like, if I said right now this team makes the playoffs or they don't make the playoffs, to me, a lot is going to come down to the corner and the safety position. And you mentioned, the beginning of the season, before you get to November, you get C.J. Stroud twice. You get Trevor Lawrence on the road. You get Tua in that offense. You have to go on the road to the Packers and Jordan Love. And then you get, Chicago, who I would imagine with Caleb Williams and the weapons they put around him, I would imagine Chicago's offense could be pretty good by week 3. So, you're facing, outside of Pittsburgh's offense and whatever the hell Tennessee's going to have with Will Levis, those are the only 2 dates that you have in the first month and a half of the season where you feel like you can breathe.
2 things I would add on that. Again, I'll go back to the pass rush can cover up a lot of whatever inexperienced youth in the secondary. Now, it's a big burden to put on the pass rush, but I think the Colts have a ton of optimism. And I'm a huge fan of the Latu pick. I do think he can come in here and be a quick impact guy for you. The second part of it is just, where were we at back in January when, I asked Chris Ballard about Gus Bradley in the defense ranking 28th in points allowed back-to-back years. And the Ballard answer was, it ain't on Gus. It was on me. Whatever, some paraphrasing of I didn't give him enough. June 25th. Where are the defensive back acquisitions? Read them all off to me this offseason.
Well, now it is on, but the point
free
is
agent or draft. Like,
the point is, it is on Gus now to develop those guys.
But in January,
it's no longer on Ballard.
In January, I didn't give you enough.
Right.
So now it's on Gus. Like, I guess I'm confused. Like, if you didn't give him enough in January, then why not try and give him a couple of things this offseason to where it's not all on Gus Bradley to develop the young talent. I thought Joel A. Erickson, when he said this on several occasions throughout the offseason, it was such a great quote of, it's one thing to kind of believe in the ceiling of your secondary. Juju Brent second-round pick or Nick Cross third-round pick, et cetera, et cetera. But what about raising the floor? Not have such a bottomed out, because in the Week 18 game, when you have the coverage bust on the first play of the game, think about that. All week long, you're preparing to face Nico Collins and a bunch of misfits at wide receiver for the Houston Texans. And on the first play of the game, you have a coverage bust. That is not a high floor. That is a total failure of a group in the most important moment of the season, when that's, 6 days of preparation for you. So that's where my worrisome falls into it. And again, it is such a front-loaded, and you just rattled off some of those quarterback names. It's so front-loaded on that end. I did want to make sure we
Y'all
played.
been kicking the out of me for years.
Yeah, Kev.
Happy birthday to Chris Ballard.
Yeah. What'd you get him? Anything?
I honestly should have texted him. Again, Ballard has always been good to me. Let's play that Anthony Richardson update clip. This was also from, and again, the GM Shuffle. Ballard made an appearance. I guess, I don't know, full transparency in how podcasts work. I guess technically we don't know when it was recorded per se, but it was released yesterday this was Ballard's update on where things are at Anthony Richardson-wise.
He'll be full go. He was full go all the way up until the last day of OTAs. And, we had 2 heavy throwing sessions the 2 days before. And so we backed off a little bit the last day. And of course, which sends up, anytime you talk about a shoulder in this city, there's some scars that everybody has. So, but he'll be good to go come training camp.
I thought you made a good point earlier, Andy, in regards to the scars don't mean that all of a sudden we shouldn't acknowledge it or we shouldn't have, questions about it. I said this back in our 7:30 segment. I'd probably push back on a little bit of how intense those throwing days were for Anthony Richardson. I mean, we were out there at practice. Tuesday was a normal workload day. A normal workload day was about 12 passes in the team sessions. Wednesday was much more abbreviated on that day of work. So, again, what happens when you get into camp and the workload is much more consistent? It's a little bit more increasing from a rep standpoint. Those questions I do think you have there. But, people have Andrew Luck scar tissue. They shouldn't be worried about Andrew Luck. I think that's kind of a little bit of a disservice and sweeping a surgically repaired right throwing shoulder under the rug.
Well, yeah, it just made it. I'm not saying Ballard's saying it, but this is kind of the notion that you get. Well, because of the Andrew Luck stuff, you guys are all worried about Anthony Richardson. No, I'm worried about Anthony Richardson that he played in 4 games, did not finish those 4 games, and played 15% of the season. And if I'm Chris Ballard, I mean, your job is going to be on the line at some point, whether it's this year or next year. I mean, who knows? But at some point, that's going to be the case. And having your quarterback play is going to go a bit, listen, Ballard's going to be able to walk around like a proud peacock if Anthony Richardson goes out there and plays the majority of the season and plays well. And I think there is a chance he does play really well. But, I mean, the fan base, they're separate things to me. The fan base still should absolutely be bothered about all the Andrew Luck stuff. But then on top of it, the fan base should also be worried that their quarterback did not stay healthy this season. And on top of it, is in an offense with a head coach that is absolutely going to open him up to taking some hits. I mean, we know that. You've talked about that, and we agree that both of us think that Shane Steichen is not going to hold Anthony Richardson back. I mean, I don't think there's going to be too much easing into it. I think he's going to run. So that would be my thing. It's not on the fans to shun their worrisome nature. It's on the Colts to kind of change that conversation. And when you have a young quarterback like Anthony Richardson who doesn't make it through the season, other quarterbacks made it through the season. I mean, C.J. Stroud made it through the season. When your guy didn't make it through the season, every Colts fan should be worried, and should be worried when he throws, 20-some-odd passes over a 2-day period and has to sit the 3rd day.
We got an injury update again from Chris Ballard. So that's why the topic was brought up today, or we felt like, it was important to bring it back up. But I don't know, maybe as early as tomorrow, and, we can discuss that after the show, Andy. I do want to get into more of just Richardson non-injury chatter, of just the general intrigue. We mentioned the Dan Orlovsky tweet from earlier in the week about, kind of an under-the-radar player he's fascinated about. But Eddie Garrison and I did this on my podcast this week about just, okay, let's put the injury talk to the side. And here in year 2, let's focus on Richardson, the player.
Mm-hmm.
And why are people intrigued and curious? And again, count me as one of the people very intrigued about what Richardson can do on a week-in, week-out basis. I would love to get into that a little bit tomorrow because, again, we don't need to rehash injury after injury, every single day and chatter. Sure, when those times come up and we feel the need to, we will. But if we do focus here, a month out from camp on what the intrigue is there, I'm reminded by the glimpses and flashes we saw last season, but also, I didn't think we saw a lot of it fully tapped into, which I think with, in a perfect world, Jonathan Taylor playing more than 2 snaps next to him.
It's unbelievable.
You should have the ability to even accentuate more of that big playability. So maybe that's something we could do tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll do that. Again, we're going to have so much time with the Anthony Richardson stuff. I told you this last week. I don't know if you were in or out. I can't remember when we did this segment. Mark, maybe you can. I'm excited to see Anthony Richardson play. I know there's a lot of, and I understand it, there's a lot of optimism. There's a lot of guarded optimism. I'm excited, and I'm praying that he stays healthy so we can see the full plan. Does that make sense? I want to be able to evaluate
turn off injuries.
Yeah,
that's what I always say.
want to be able to evaluate. And it's impossible to do so. There are going to be injuries, but for this team and for AR and for this offense, I want to be able to have week after week, and be able to put together a couple months. We would hope to where the injuries are not the reason that the performance is where it is. Does that make sense? Last year, everything was like, well, AR's injured. And then you go to Atlanta, it's like, well, Pittman's injured. And then Grover Stewart has the 6-game suspension. And I know it's not possible probably in the NFL, but I'd love to get some weeks here to where we could actually evaluate this team, full power, Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, Pittman, A.D. Mitchell, the tight ends, Shane Steichen running things, so we can actually see. I think that's the frustrating part, that last year, while it was kind of satisfying because you were so close to making the playoffs, you were just biding time to this year. This wasn't the real kind of Shane Steichen offense that anyone envisioned going into the year. I contend, I always say this, when we get to like August, and maybe it's even going to be late July because the team, was it the 24th that they report? When we get to August, that's when I think fans really turn things up on the offseason stuff's out of the way. Now let's talk about this season and winning this season.
I think for the first time in a long, long time, the Colts should have a quarterback that actually stresses a defense. I mean,
you have to think about it. Phillip Rivers, Gardner Minshew, Matt Ryan, Nick Foles.
Jacoby Brissett.
Curtis Painter. Who else did I miss there? Sorry.
I don't know if you should laugh or you should cry hearing some of those names. Like, truly stress a defense. And Richardson can do that. And I think that is vital to, causing week-to-week issues around the league. So maybe that's something we can get into tomorrow. All right, Notre Dame product. Olympic swimmer, Chris Giuliano. It is our, Olympian day here.
It is.
On the wake-up call. Decorated at the Olympic swim trials, a very fast in the freestyle. I think a bit of a surprise, honestly. We can get more into that with him. But he'll be a name to watch after qualifying. It was all three of them, right? 50, 100, and 200-meter freestyle?
It's unbelievable.
Pretty remarkable.
He had the dream. Chris had the dream of any swimmer or any Olympian. He went there and he absolutely nailed the
and again, not like
the swimming.
The household name.
No, not the household name at all.
Coming into the swim trial. So the Notre Dame, I guess Alano, maybe we can ask him. He's going to join us here coming up in about 5 minutes. Before that, let's check it out.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, we played them all in hour number one. We'll just play the winners from WQAM. We'll do that here in a second from South Beach as the Florida Panthers. They won Game 7 of the NHL Finals last night over Edmonton, 2-1. The final, what was this, Mark? 20 seconds or so. The puck goes into the corner, kind of a scrum, and that's how it all ends. Here's how it sounded on Florida Panther Radio Network.
10 seconds left. 2-1 Panthers. A dream 30 years in the making is a reality. The Florida Panthers have the Stanley Cup. Lord Stanley is coming home. You always will have a place in South Florida. Oh, my God. The Panthers have won the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history. Yeah!
I mean, does the color guy not sound like just some drunk 30-year season ticket holder?
It really
does.
Been
waiting for, I guess.
Good for that guy.
I don't think the Panthers even been around for 30 years, but have waited for this my whole life. Love that call right there. Great theater, I thought, early on in that game. And even, without the goals, hockey just provides this unbelievable third period. It always seems like that team trailing is right on the doorstep of tying it up. And I felt that way. I mean, some near misses for the Oilers and trying to tie that up there. But yes, Lord Stanley indeed to the Florida Panthers. College World Series, it's the Vols. A Rocky Top playing loud. And boy, you got the Omaha Bars. Had to love that. Tennessee, your national champs, one of the best seasons in college baseball history. Shout out to Evansville for at least taking a game from them in the Super Regional. But Tennessee gets it done 6-5 over Texas A&M. Last night, Major League Baseball, I'm wearing the Ellie shirt for a reason.
I thought so.
Quite the drive to center field for Ellie De La Cruz last night, hitting one off the boat at Great American Ballpark. Almost hit for the cycle. Triple short of it last night. Vlad Guerrero, 470 feet out of Fenway, and we will not bring up what happened to the Cubs.
No. They stink. They're not worth mentioning.
Mark woke up unhappy. I bet JMV takes a run at you over your Cubbies.
Actually,
I kind of feel like he might take a run at you
I woke up this morning
today.
and I was like, it was 4-2 when I went to bed. I bet they lost this game, and sure enough, they did in hilarious fashion.
One more thing on the College World Series. You know the bar there, the Rocco's.
Yeah, they do the Jello shots.
They
right?
do the Jello shot challenge. Obviously, Tennessee won this year. The Jello shot challenge. 4 years in a row, KB, the winner of the Jello Shot Challenge has also won the College World Series.
Oh, my gosh.
How about that?
That bar is set for life.
How about that? 4 years in a row. It's a little trend. Just a little trend out there.
Marketing.
In Omaha. Chris Giuliano, he'll join us next. He's an Olympian. He also went to Notre Dame, so me and Mark may just leave while KB does the interview. We'll do it next here on this Tuesday on The Fan.
Make the hiring process work for you.
The Fan. It's the wake-up call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Well, Giuliano has looked good so far, and he's looking good again in this first semifinal.
Yeah, he's a big guy, as you said. He swam 3 200s the last couple of days. Did that tire him out? I don't think so. And Armstrong was 6th at the 50. Watch him in lane 5, right underneath him.
Yeah, lane 5 is Hunter Armstrong looking good, but it is Giuliano up there in lane 4 who's going to win this semifinal, and he's lowered it again. It's his best time, lifetime best.
Boy, what a week it was for Chris Giuliano, the Notre Dame product. He is heading to Paris, 50-meter, 100-meter, 200-meter freestyle. Chris, if I told you 2 weeks ago you'd be going to Paris in all 3 of those events, what would you have said?
Hey, awesome. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's just a blessing. To be able to make it in all 3, I probably would have said you're crazy.
It seemed like I thought I saw. Did you clip personal best at all 3 of them? Is that right? I
did, yes.
Yeah. So I hope this doesn't sound like I'm discrediting you, but like, was this a surprise? Like, it didn't seem. I mean, to me, that is just amazing. The biggest meet of your life, and you eclipsed personal best in all 3 of them. How much did that even surprise you, if any?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to be able to have the range to compete in all 3. But no, I was talking to my coaches and telling them, hey, let's go out there and try to win all 3 of them. And I knew I was capable of putting my best foot forward, and, we came away with 3 individuals.
Chris Giuliano with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. I mean, Chris, let's just be honest. You don't have to be you can be cocky for a second. You dominated. Chris, you dominated. You had a great week and a half or so. What was it? Does momentum carry from event to event, or does it stop? Does that momentum stop after a particular event, and then you have to go to another one? Because with you, it just felt like the good vibes just kept rolling event to event, day after day.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming into the meet, I knew I thought the 100 would be my best opportunity to make the team. But, once I made the 200, I knew I was on, and I felt like I was playing with house money the rest of the week. So it was the most fun I've had at a swim meet, just because, like, I haven't felt that relaxed in so long, and it was just an honor.
Now, you were relaxed. They showed your parents not so relaxed. Their nerves, but also their multiple celebrations. So do they know how much TV time they got over the last week or so?
They do. They do. My teammates and all the other parents, they made sure to let them know. And, just seeing them on TV, just hugging each other, embracing each other, it brought a tear to my eye. So.
Chris Giuliano, an incredible Olympic trials for him. Again, off to Paris, 50-meter, 100-meter, 200-meter Notre Dame product. Join us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. What did you think of swimming inside of Lucas Oil Stadium?
It was the best environment I've ever been a part of. It was really cool to see how they set everything up. And it was just great to be part of such an electric atmosphere.
Any tweaks you would make? We had Lilly King on earlier, and I was asking her this question. Like, when we watch on TV, you just notice the glitz and the glamour. You're behind the scenes. Like, you want things to be smooth. You want logistically the warm-ups to be normal, et cetera, et cetera. Anything you would tweak at all, or would you like to see it back here in 2028?
Yeah, I think Indy did a great job. Historically, it's been a great city for hosting big events. And, just being able to walk around the city, and just see a bunch of people having a great time. I mean, I love being a part of it and contributing to Indy's success.
Chris Giuliano with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline, going to the Olympics, Notre Dame product. Now, Chris, I do need to tell you, just so you know, we're a couple minutes into the interview. Kevin Bowen, the man next to me, is a big he's a big Irish fan. He's a big Notre Dame fan. So
I feel like you're selling myself short with that. Yeah.
He's crazy about Notre Dame is basically what I was trying to tell
Chris,
you.
I'll go nuts for a Notre Dame national title in swimming, man. I'll do anything.
He took his shirt off He took his shirt off when Micah Shrewsbury got the job as men's basketball coach, Chris.
Well, now you're embarrassing me here a little bit here. Chris, why did you pick Notre Dame?
Yeah, so, there was always something about Notre Dame, that attracted me. Growing up, I was, the Irish were right up there as one of my favorite schools. And once I visited here, I loved it. I just instantly fell in love. There's just something special in the air here. Walking around campus, it's so beautiful. And I felt like it was the best place for me to grow up, mature, and excel in both academics and athletics.
Now, I don't think people typically pick Notre Dame to party, so this might not be the proper question for you, but I am curious about this. You are obviously off the Olympics in a month. You just accomplished, I would say, one of the cooler things, frankly, we've seen, period, in Olympic swim trials here in our country. Do you celebrate at all? Like, do you get one night to party or do any? I don't know if you are a party to do anything on that end, or are we just all locked in, focused on Paris?
Oh, I'm all locked in right now on Paris. I think I'll be able to celebrate after. So, in August. Today's actually my birthday too, my 21st.
Oh my God!
21st birthday, Chris?
Yep.
Who's got it better than you? Honestly, who's had a better last couple weeks than you, Chris?
Chris, would you like for us to sing or no?
You're on fire.
Yeah, it's been a great few days here. So
no birthday celebration, just a little bit of birthday celebration.
Hey.
I would imagine just a
Over
little
bit on that or something there.
Are you ready to take down the Australians in Paris?
We're ready for any type of challenge. I'm really confident in the group that we have going with us. And I think we're going to do some special things together.
Slightly more politically correct answer than Lilly King there from Chris Giuliano, as he is with us here. First time Olympian.
Lilly called him little brother.
You're correct.
Yeah, about an hour ago.
Yeah. She did on that end. Chris, what was it like walking inside of the Colts locker room yesterday? It looked pretty cool. You guys seeing all your gear in there.
Oh, yeah, seeing all the gear posted up in the locker room, it was incredible. Just being able to have that moment with all the guys and girls there is so special to me. My first Olympic team, tons of gear. I'm excited.
Do you have a favorite spot on Notre Dame's campus? We asked Lilly King, obviously an IU product. She went with, I was surprised, she went with a chain and Brothers with her answer there. So, it could be a spot on campus. I think a lot of our listeners have probably been on campus up there. Or even, a local establishment. Granted, you just turned 21. Favorite spot up in Notre Dame?
I don't have a favorite spot around South Bend, but, on campus, it's tough to beat the Grotto, It's so tough to beat it.
Yeah, that is certainly a beautiful spot on campus. Well, Chris, congrats, man. An unbelievable accomplishment. It was fun kind of getting to know your story and then hearing a little bit more of it with us here. A happy 21st birthday. Celebrate, I don't know, maybe the linebacker coming up in August whenever you get back on campus. And good luck in Paris, man.
Thank you so much. Go Irish.
That is the Olympian. Go Irish indeed.
Go Irish
Chris
on a Tuesday.
Giuliano.
He mentioned
21st. What were you doing at 9:40 in the morning on your 21st birthday? Because I know where I was.
Sure as hell not doing radio hits. I can tell you that
not doing sports talk radio. What were you doing?
I think I had just walked out to the back balcony of my Oddfellows apartment in Bloomington and saw the Goldschlager shot that I had, went in one way, came out the other, and I think I was going to get some breakfast early in the morning to try and cure the hangover.
Well, I'm happy that Chris can finally now have a beer.
He waited all this. Just one night of celebrating.
Maybe he just didn't want to tell us.
Now, I was talking to some of the swimmers when I was at that Fan Fest event on Sunday, and one of them was like, "There are definitely some swimmers that get after it here in Indy." So, not everybody's as
I like that.
Buttoned up and locked in. I'd like to think maybe one night to celebrate before we
you go over to Paris.
No,
maybe he's gonna have his fun in Paris. I would imagine what's it called? The Olympic Village is usually a fun place. That's usually a fun place to be a part of. The Olympic Village. Yeah.
So some good-looking, well-trained athletes.
Give up party favors out there, I hear.
In that area.
Usually.
Yeah.
And they don't speak English.
Yeah.
What What happens there stays there unless some of
the time. He mentioned. I'm trying to go back and remember what he said, and also obviously this is not more than a week and a half ago. The 200. There was the thought. I mean, where this guy came from, he didn't know if he was going to qualify for the 200, and then he did qualify for the 200, and he mentioned it there with us. That it let him play with house money. It let him to be relaxed. If you remember, I think even, when we were talking with Pat Forty last week, it would have been now a week ago, about, I think, Giuliano, like at that point, we didn't know if he was going to kind of finish this meet and the qualifying as well as he did. I mean, there was thought he might have to wait a few days to find out if he was actually going to make the team, but he went out and he took care of it himself. Good for him, man. Good for him.
He is the first swimmer since 1988. First man to qualify for the 50, 100, and 200 free.
Good for him.
1988. So absolutely remarkable from Chris Giuliano. So him, Lilly King, both of those up on the podcast. We'll do a pop quiz here in a few. Is that correct?
Yeah, I saw Scotty send it down. He was not mad at us from yesterday when we did not get to it. But
we got time to sneak that
We
in.
do. So let's do that. 239-1070 pop quiz. We'll do it next year on this Tuesday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
High five.
Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Some Olympic flair today. Lilly King was certainly herself with us. She joined us at 8:30, and it'll be the third Olympics for her. It'll be the first for Notre Dame swimmer Chris Giuliano, but he'll be performing 50, 100, 200-meter freestyle in all three of those events. First American male to do that since 1988, so pretty impressive, obviously, on both of those fronts. Shout out to Indy's own Cole Hawker, qualified last night in the 1,500-meter Olympic track and field trials. Hell of a final kick there to get into his second Olympics, so the Cathedral product will look for a medal in that. And on a much lesser scale of accomplishments, now we do the pop quiz.
Yeah. Well, look at you and Scotty, by the way, both wearing Reds gear. Head to toe today.
Head to toe, Scotty and I.
Look at Mark. That win last night, that got them all happy. Both of them.
Ellie De La Cruz, Scotty, pretty entertaining, right?
In my opinion, that sucked.
Yeah.
I did find
there
it.
it is.
Yeah, and this is a bigger debate, but how does NHL, how do they attract more of the common fan? How does Major League Baseball get more of the consistent night in, night out? I did think last night, the start of Game 7, I find myself saying, why don't I watch more hockey?
Oh, yeah.
And then, you watch a little baseball last night, it's like Ellie De La Cruz does that. Vlad Guerrero Jr. does that. It's like, man, I know it's not nightly, but it's it was kind of a reminder on a Monday in June of what those sports can offer.
Unless I'm mistaken, didn't he adopt the Buffalo Sabres or something to be his team next year? I think he talked about that during the season. I think he and a buddy adopted just a random NHL team that had nothing to do with this area, right? Had no connection to Indianapolis. So he went to
Buffalo's Bally package here to watch the Sabres.
Buffalo, Scotty, you would probably know, Buffalo hasn't. It's 20 years? It's over 15 years since they had made the playoffs.
Patrick Kane, is he from there? Did he go back there, Mark? What am I thinking of? Isn't Kane
Patrick Kane?
Yeah.
He was with the Red Wings.
Is he from Buffalo?
He's from
Buffalo,
Buffalo,
is that what it is?
yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of on that end.
As someone who lived in Buffalo, the best part about Buffalo was packing up and leaving. About 10 months out of the year when it snows, beginning October 1st. Anyway, you want to go caller number 2? How does that sound? Caller number 2? Scott, good morning, man. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Hey, Scott, you a hockey guy at all?
Casual appreciation. I know where Buffalo Sabres
are
located.
Okay, well, that's a start. How do you like the sound of 4 hockey questions on this pop quiz?
Let's see how we do.
Oh, goodness. Well, let's go. Let's hit the music.
A little more optimistic than I'd be.
4 hockey questions and a College World Series. So let's start with the College World Series. Tennessee is their college baseball national champion. They knocked off Texas A&M last night in Game 3 of the College World Series. It's the first national championship in baseball for the Volunteers. The question, though, when was the last time Tennessee reached the College World Series finals? Was it 1995, 1973, 1951, or this was their first trip to the finals?
This was their first. We'll just go with that. I have no clue.
You sure, Scott?
No, not at all. It was, 51, 75, and 95?
Yeah, 95, 73, and 51.
Let's do the early 1951.
Number 2 here, as we get into the easier part of the pop quiz. The Panthers are the Stanley Cup champs for the first time in franchise history after knocking off the Oilers 2-1 last night in Game 7. How many trips to the Stanley Cup final did the Panthers need to take home their first cup?
I know they went last year.
I guess you would combine how many goals were scored in the game last night, right?
I guess that would be 3.
Look at that. Our guy Scott's going.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to butcher a Canadian name here in a second. Edmonton's Connor McDavid won the Conn Smythe Trophy as the MVP of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, it's the 6th time that a member of the losing team in the finals went home with the Smythe Trophy. Who was the last to do it before Connor McDavid? Was it Scott Niedermayer, Jean-Sebastian Giguere, Bill Ranford, or Ron Hextall?
Isn't it the guy from Ricky Bobby? Say that again, number 2.
Jean-Sebastian Giguere? Is that how you say it? Close enough.
Simon Pagenaud's doppelganger and Ricky Bobby.
And here I was hoping it was going to be Randy Leach. That was the one thing I knew. Let's go with Sebastian, the number.
Yeah,
Sebastian
no
Giguere.
Yep.
Okay.
Say
Good
Sebastian.
enough.
Sebastian Bourdais, whatever. It works for me. Okay, Scott, in all 4 major North American pro sports leagues, a member of the losing team in the championship series or game was named MVP. Jerry West was the inaugural NBA Finals MVP in 1969, despite his Lakers losing to the Celtics. Dallas linebacker Chuck Howley was MVP of Super Bowl V, despite losing to the Colts. Who was the only World Series MVP to come from a losing team? Bobby Richardson, Yogi Berra, Jackie Robinson, or Bob Gibson?
Berra or Gibson? Yogi never really lost. Let's go with Bob Gibson.
All right, question number 5. The Conn Smythe Trophy was first awarded in 1965. Over the years, players from which position have been awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy the most often? Goaltender, winger, defenseman, or center?
Center.
Boy,
Scott did a good job,
I tell you
man.
what, Scott, I'm not a participation trophy guy at all, but I mean, good work from Scott.
Scott, you did a good job, man.
What the hell? 4 hockey questions? We got the NBA draft tomorrow night.
But he came correct with that last one. Oh, it's center. And he got that one right.
And he thought his way through number 4, Yogi Berra won quite often there. Okay, he got 1 right, 51.
Correcto. Yeah, Tennessee lost to Oklahoma in 1951, in case you care.
He got 2 right, and what I loved about his answer on 2 is he tried to give us the year 2, and I was like, dude, you've done enough.
Yeah.
Just stick with the 3, and you got that right. He got your boy from Ricky Bobby right.
Jean-Sebastian Giguere, right?
And I guess the 1 slip-up, which, again, I just feel bad for him.
It's just question number 4. Who was the only World Series MVP to come from a losing team? 1960, Bobby Richardson. 1960.
I don't really have a great answer for your question because I really don't give a
That's like 90% of the pop quiz question answers usually.
You like that, don't you?
Do you have the
like
Lilly
that drop,
King audio,
don't you?
Mark?
I have it censored.
Yeah,
I'd have to pull it real
can
quick.
You play that? This is Lilly King with us
Hold on, I
earlier.
gotta
She
find
was
it.
outstanding. I can't believe you were surprised that she cussed.
Well, I think it was just more of a...
She was comfortable.
Yeah, she was comfortable.
I
That's fine.
had it about 1.5 cuss words from the exceptional Lilly King.
People feel more comfortable on sports radio. They're on a phone. They're not, having 3 cameras on their face on NBC or Fox or CBS or ESPN. They feel comfortable with us. It's an open forum.
Not the show host making them feel comfortable.
No. Well, no, I'm saying we're part of it. Sports radio. Yeah, we're part of it.
Lilly King with us earlier. Chris Giuliano with us earlier. We did talk a couple of different Colts segments. Again, we'll continue to do that throughout here the next month as we lead into training camp. 1 month from today, that's the expectation. We'll get the first practice going at Grand Park. We'll know that schedule coming up tomorrow night. That'll be late tomorrow night. That'll be released, so we'll talk about that a lot. And on Thursday's show, tomorrow's show, Andy, we preview the NBA draft without the Pacers having a first-round pick.
No kidding. What kind of a release are we expecting tomorrow? It's nothing fancy, right? On the dates? The NFL's not doing anything special. They're sending out a tweet, aren't they?
This is just the Colts. Just
the Colts. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're having a fan fest event up in Westfield. Again,
Sure.
I said this last week. Nothing like the NFL saying, watch this NBA. Oh, night 1 of the NBA draft, we're going to announce our training camp schedule. Night 1 of the NBA
He didn't
draft.
really elaborate on it, but Chris Ballard alluded to where they might start broadcasting some of the actual scrimmages.
Did he say that?
Yeah,
Wow.
they're having a scrimmage against the Arizona Cardinals. I actually would like to find out more about that. Lombardi really didn't follow up with it because there's other things to talk about, but they did allude to it that if they wanted to, they very well could, given that 10,000 people show up.
I'm gonna go with Simone Manuel.
Okay.
She's a confident woman, and she gets her done. And
I love that.
What a great compliment.
We got to get out of here. JMV at 3. Jake is back. Jake and Jimmy at noon. Have a good afternoon on the Fan.